The Strongest Sect. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 826. Another function of the magic vacuum cleaner. The master is back. Junior sister Liu is back. Li Fei shouted at the top of his lungs in the Wangu sect, and the disciples who were practicing came out to warmly welcome him. King Guiyang. As soon as he sat in the hall, Jun Changxiao ordered, "This is a new disciple, you go and make arrangements." Yes. Li King Guiyang took Lin Yao to the inner courtyard. Elder Jiang. Jun Changxiao said, "Nothing happened during the days when I was away, right?" "Yes." Jiangzi said, "Dunan, who is responsible for cleaning the inner courtyard, found a magic modified multifunctional vacuum cleaner that can absorb some unclean things." Oh. Jun Changxiao's eyes were filled with surprise. This was the daily necessities that were bought by the refresh of the intermediate beast pill. When they went to the Imperial City, they gave it to Dunan to clean the fallen leaves and dust on the martial arts field. Call him. Yes. Not long after, Dunan walked into the hall. This guy's previously flowing hair had been shaved off, and he had become a monk. It was not intentional. He was kicked out when he came to the sect to catch evil cultivators. A piece of his head was rubbed off on the stone slab. It would take time for it to grow back, so he simply shaved it. Don't say it. After shaving his head, Dunan's understanding of Buddhism has greatly improved. He has become bolder and stronger. Jun Changxiao asked, "Can a vacuum cleaner suck up unclean things?" "Yes, sect master." Dunan said, "After observation and research by my disciples, this thing can not only absorb dust and debris, but also absorb evil spirits." It was a coincidence. One day, he routinely used a vacuum cleaner to clean the inner courtyard martial arts field. Mo Shang happened to be practicing and releasing evil spirits, and the energy was directly absorbed by force. Jun Changxiao said, "Call him to demonstrate." Not long after, Mo Shang walked over. However, his head was surprisingly shiny. Jun Changxiao was surprised and asked, "You have also seen through the world and become a monk?" "Sect master." Dunan said, "Senior brother Mo's hair was sucked away by the vacuum cleaner." Mo Shang almost cried when he mentioned this. He got up early to practice in the inner courtyard. As soon as he released his evil spirit, the energy was sucked away uncontrollably. He couldn't keep his body steady and fell directly over. His head was facing the flat suction nozzle, and his black hair was instantly sucked in. Fortunately, Dunan turned it off in time, otherwise his scalp would have been sucked in. After listening, Jun Changxiao stood up and walked down, patted Mo Shang on the shoulder, and said, "I'm sorry. Haha. Ha 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 ha." Sect master. In the martial arts arena, Mo Shang collapsed and said, "Let's not test it. Don't talk nonsense." Jun Changxiao took the magic modified vacuum cleaner and said, "Release your evil spirit quickly, and I will see how it was sucked away." Okay. Mo Shang released the evil spirit helplessly. Snap. Jun Changxiao started the vacuum cleaner, and the strong suction force suddenly burst out. The flat suction nozzle was just placed on the ground, and the dust and stones were immediately collected. At this moment, a strange scene happened. The evil energy that had originally gathered outside Mo Shang's body suddenly flew over uncontrollably. Can it really absorb evil energy? Jun Changxiao said in surprise. Mo Shang was always on edge, forcing himself to stabilize his body and not automatically send his head to the door. But he didn't go over, and the flat suction nozzle flew over by itself and was about to make close contact with his forehead. Snap. Jun Changxiao hurriedly closed it. The suction force dissipated immediately, and Mo Shang collapsed on the ground in shock. Although the suction force of the flat suction nozzle was not a terrifying force, when it touched his body, he deeply felt that it was about to be sucked up. It was a small matter to take away the evil energy in his body, but it was a big matter to lose his scalp. It's really magical. Jun Changxiao's eyes flickered in surprise. This kind of daily necessities that you buy casually can actually absorb evil energy. It's really beyond imagination. King Guiyang. Jun Chang said with a smile, "Release your spiritual energy." He also wanted to try whether this thing could absorb normal martial artists. The result was disappointing, because after leaking Guiyang released his spiritual energy, he was not affected by the suction force. Even when he put the flat suction nozzle on his face, there was only a slight suction force, and he could not tear off his skin and flesh. He called Yao Mengying again. After testing, it was concluded that the magic energy she released could be absorbed. I understand. Jun Chang said with a smile. The magic modified multifunctional vacuum cleaner has no effect on normal martial artists, but it is effective for evil and demonic cultivators. By the way, he held his chin and said, if it is used to deal with the evil sect, will it be very effective? This is effective not only to absorb, but also to absorb higher level ones. Mr. Ding. Jun Chang said with a smile, you come and release the evil energy. After all, Mo Shang is only an evil cultivator at the level of the martial king. He needs to test the martial saint like the 5 absolute evil saint. Ding Xingwang said proudly, Master, although this vacuum cleaner is a bit strange, I'm afraid it can't absorb my evil spirit. In the era when the martial emperor did not appear as a martial saint of the evil sect, he had the capital to look down on the heroes. Try it. Well, then. Ding Xingwang stood still, and a strong evil spirit suddenly burst out from his body. Compared with Mo Shang, who was half an evil cultivator, he was just an ant at the foot of a mountain. Dunan, who was standing next to him, twitched his mouth slightly. It turned out that this Elder Ding was not only an evil cultivator, but also very terrifying. Where did he get the courage to sneak into the eternal ancient sect before? Jun Changxiao turned on the vacuum cleaner, and the suction force suddenly burst out. Although he felt the evil spirit and wanted to absorb it, he was always unable to do so. Sect Master. Ding Xingwang said, it's useless to me. Jun Changxiao raised his hand, placed it in front of the button on the handle, and said, turn to second gear. The magic modified multifunctional vacuum cleaner has a speed adjustment function similar to that of a fan, which is divided into first, second, and third gears. Dunan always uses first gear because it is enough to absorb leaves and dust. Second gear starts. In an instant, the flat suction nozzle generates a strong suction force, and even if it is kept far enough from the ground, dust and leaves are immediately collected. Ding Xingwang's face changed slightly. At this moment, he already felt that the evil spirit was being pulled by some force, but it was still within the controllable range. Not good yet. Snap. The third gear is turned on. The suction power is stronger, and Dunan, Mo Shang and others can clearly see that the dust and fallen leaves within 10 feet of the master are all sucked in instantly. Ding Xingwang's face suddenly became solemn. The third gear suction power burst out, and the evil spirit gathered around him could not be suppressed at all, and was extending towards the flattened suction nozzle. Although he has been trying to restrain himself, he can only delay the time of flying over. The current picture is, the strong suction power bursts out, pulling the evil spirit hard, and the two are getting closer and closer. How is it? Jun Chang smiled. Ding Xingwang said with an ugly face, I can still hold on. He said so, but he knew in his heart that, if he didn't quickly keep a sufficient distance from it, the released evil spirit would definitely be taken in. The third gear mode can make a martial saint so embarrassed, which shows how terrible the suction power is. Of course. It's just because Ding Xingwang allowed the vacuum cleaner to suck like this. If it were an enemy, they could just leave immediately, and then it would be useless. In that case, Jun Changxiao said solemnly, we can only turn on the enhanced mode. After saying that, he clicked on the red button. Ding. The host successfully turned on the enhanced mode of the multifunctional vacuum cleaner, consuming 100 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value of the sect. 49,900/50,000. Nima. Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, it cost so much. At the moment of collapse, the flat suction nozzle suddenly erupted with a stronger and more terrifying suction force than before, and it almost flew out of his hand without holding it firmly. Ding Xingwang's face changed drastically, and the evil spirit he released suddenly rushed away like a flood. He couldn't control it at all, even his body couldn't control it, and he staggered away with a thump, and finally his head was nailed directly on the flat suction nozzle. Not good. Jun Changxiao exclaimed, and hurriedly turned off the vacuum cleaner. However, although the suction stopped instantly after Ding Xingwang separated from the flat suction nozzle, his old and sophisticated grey hair disappeared, and his head was shiny. "Ah, my thick hair." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched, and he comforted him. "Mr. Ding, don't be sad. I will find a way to get you a bottle of Overlord shampoo, and after using it, it should be able to grow all the hair out in no time." Chapter 827 The Unbreakable Seal. Items in the system more are divided into divine modification and magic modification. The former has special effects, and the latter has functions. For example, the eightfold mirror enhancement mode consumes 5 contribution points to enable it, allowing Jun Changxiao to have the ability of self-aiming, perspective, and eavesdropping. The magic modified vacuum cleaner also has an enhancement mode, which requires 100 points to activate once. It is expensive for a reason. After the enhancement mode is activated, the terrifying suction force directly makes Ding Xingwang lose his resistance. Not only is the evil spirit absorbed into it, but even his grey hair is also affected. Fortunately, the whole process happened in the blink of an eye and did not cause any pain to the patient. My hair, my hair. Ding Xingwang squatted on the ground, holding a pile of grey hair taken out of the dust collector, and the whole person seemed to have aged hundreds of years in an instant. Mo Shang next to him raised his sleeves to wipe his tears. He can now deeply understand the pain in Elder Ding's heart, because he is also a victim. Actually, Jun Changxiao comforted, these are just 3,000 strands of worry. If they are gone, there will be no worries. It may not be a bad thing. Ding Xingwang silently took out a shiny razor and said, I will help the master push away the 3,000 strands of worry. No. Jun Changxiao said sadly, as the master of a sect, I'm destined to bear many worries. How can I escape? Not to mention 3,000 strands of worry, even 9,000 strands of worry must be carried. Ding Xingwang rolled his eyes immediately. He persuaded others in a set of ways, but when it was his turn, he changed immediately. Ding, ding, ding. When the night came, Jun Changxiao sat in the study and diligently brushed the initial stage mall. If for nothing else, it was to brush out products that could generate hair to help Ding Liu recover his injured heart. After testing during the day, the conclusion was drawn. The magic modified vacuum cleaner is very effective in treating evil and demon cultivation, especially when the enhanced mode is turned on. Even the martial saint level can't stand it. However, it also has flaws. It can only absorb the warriors who release evil energy and nearby targets. If the opponent does not explode or is far away, it will be useless. Moreover, the evil energy can only be temporarily sealed in the dust collector. Once it is opened, it will automatically return to the body of the absorber. It can be used for self-defense. At least the evil sect strongmen dare not approach at will. The desolate mountains and wild ridges, cold and murderous. Dozens of evil sect strongmen have fierce eyes. Jun Changxiao carried the magic modified vacuum cleaner on his back, raised the flat suction mouth, and shouted, come hear this scene. How cool, sand, and scattered, carving. But, Jun Changxiao retracted his fantasy and frowned. The magic modified product function can only be activated by yourself, and the equipment for disciples can only be adjusted to the 3rd gear. The system said, Ding Xingwang said, that the 3rd gear mode has made him feel stressed. That's right. Jun Changxiao said, if we fight against more powerful evil sects in the future, we can purchase a large number of magic modified vacuum cleaners and let the disciples equip them. It is more effective than magic weapons. Xingaiu continent is mainly based on martial arts. However, if there is a convenient means to deal with the enemy, he will definitely not hesitate to use it. No one stipulates that martial arts must be used, and no one stipulates that hot weapons and multifunctional vacuum cleaners cannot be used. He, Jun Changxiao, is destined to be a man who leads the world astray. By the way, a flash of inspiration came to him. Can the magic vacuum cleaner suck the Soul Clan? The system said, the host has a good imagination. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, evil spirit and demonic spirit are considered unclean things. The Soul Clan controls the body by occupying other people's souls, which should also be classified as unclean. The system said, if the host wants to confirm his guess, He can go to the Soul Clan world in person to try it. Go, go, go. Jun Changxiao said, I'm not that stupid. Not sure if it will work on the Soul Clan. He will definitely not go to the Soul Clan world with his head kicked by a donkey. Moreover, as of now, the enhanced mode can deal with the evil martial saint. If it is ineffective against the emperor level, if he goes to their territory and encounters such a strong man, he will be in trouble. After I have enough strength and confidence, I will enter the world of the Soul Clan to fight. Jun Changxiao said righteously, save the people from the water and fire. The system said, if the Soul Clan knew that they had been targeted by the shameless host, they would definitely shrink in the corner and tremble. Ding. Jun Changxiao refreshed the beginner mall again, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Because, among the new products listed, there is a product called Super Hair Growth Agent, which has the effect of instantly increasing hair, and the price is only 50 contribution points. Buy it. Ding. Ha ha ha. The next day, Ding Xingwang sat in front of the bronze mirror in the room, looking at the lush hair that had grown over pass, and excitedly raised his head and laughed. Boom. Boom. In a dark and lightless world, several burly men, they have horns on their heads, and are madly ramming the space barrier with their bodies. This is the other end of the sealed space channel. These creatures are the Soul Clan. In their own world, they can condense their bodies, and even their defense strength is not inferior to that of the Beast Clan. However, when invading other planes, they have never advocated fighting with real swords and guns, but use the unique magical powers of the clan to gather soul forms, live in the bodies of organisms, and swallow them when they are mature to gain dominance. The overall strength of this clan may not be very strong, but once it turns into a soul form and lives in other clans, it will use the power of the other party to strengthen itself. 10,000 years ago, the Starfall continent, the 9 martial emperors were occupied, and the subsequent war of emperors led to the disintegration of the world. Head-on confrontation. The Soul Clan may not be able to defeat the Starfall continent, but the insidious part is that they can control other people's bodies and suddenly stab them in the back. In short, this tribe is insidious and cunning. Even if they can beat their opponents, they will not fight you openly. Damn it. A Soul Clan strongman repeatedly attacked the barrier to no avail, and said angrily, it is obviously showing signs of loosening. How come it is suddenly harder than before? Could it be that the Starfall continent formation master has reinforced the seal again? Said the Soul Clan strongman next to him. If that's the case, it will be very difficult for us to invade again. The 3 soul masters have awakened and sent an invasion signal. If we can't join them in time, we will definitely be punished. They are very anxious, waiting online. But no matter whether they continue to attack the barrier or attack it together, they can't shake it, and from the frequency, it can be roughly inferred that it will be difficult to break it without 100 years. The Soul Clan has a long lifespan, and 100 years is just a blink of an eye. But the 3 soul masters have awakened in the Starfall continent, waiting for them to cooperate with each other, and they can't afford to delay for a day. Alas. A Soul Clan strongman sighed. At this time, I just hope that the 3 soul masters can realize this problem and disintegrate the seal from the inside of the Starfall continent. Otherwise we will not be able to enter in a short time. The whole continent really has to thank Jun Changxiao. Without him ordering Shangguans in IAO to bless the defensive seal, so as to hold on for hundreds of years. At this time, the cliché plot of foreign invasion has been staged everywhere in the Starfall continent. Chapter 828 Palace Master's Egos to the Hangman Banquet. A place with beautiful mountains and clear waters. Delu, dressed in a black robe, stood quietly, and the green attribute of the grassland appeared around him, and then spread to the nearby grass and trees, absorbing all the spiritual energy in their bodies. After a while, he opened his eyes. He exhaled a breath of turbid air and said, I have broken through the 6th level. Brother Green Scarf really worked very hard to become stronger and to take revenge. However, compared with Jun Guabi, he, who has the life of a protagonist, is really a tragedy. Boy. Hun said dissatisfiedly, it's a long way to break through the Emperor level, just by absorbing grass and beasts. It's better to absorb warriors of the same realm. Delu shook his head and said, to kill innocent lives for revenge. What's the difference between this and evil? In theory, he and Jun Changxiao have a grudge, so he can be considered a villain, but he is definitely not an unforgivable villain, so he will definitely not do anything unscrupulous. In a world where martial arts are respected, the law of the jungle prevails. Han roared in frustration, you care so much about good and evil, and sooner or later you will kill yourself. Stop talking. Delu said, I have my own plan. Han was silent for a moment. I thought this fool was easy to fool, but I didn't expect him to be so principled. It seems that it will take a long time for me to devour him, and take him for myself. Wang Guzan. Jun Chang smiled, and sat in Xiao Hall, saying, why is he only a 6th rank martial king? Li Luoqiu pouted and said, I have to take care of Xiao Hall and purchasing hall, so how can I have time to practice? She broke through to the martial king with the help of the martial king pill, and broke through to the 6th rank by going to the secret realm of life and death to experience and improve. Otherwise, she would have no time to practice on weekdays, and now she is at most a 2nd or 3rd rank. Thank you for your hard work. Jun Chang smiled. The 24 heroes of Lingan Pavilion can only be admitted by disciples, otherwise they would definitely consider letting this woman settle in. Li Luoqiu joked, did you come to Xiaotang just to ask about my realm? Of course not. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, did you get any results from the things I asked you to investigate some time ago? When it came to business, Li Luoqiu became serious and said, I have ordered people to inquire from many sources, and there is no abnormality for the time being. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, is that old man fooling me? In the 10 Directions Death Tower, the Emperor of Array had said, maybe it will take a long time, maybe it has already come to the Xinjiang continent, occupied the human body, and is slowly growing. Jun Changxiao didn't seem to take the responsibility of saving the world to heart, but he still ordered Xiaotang to find out if there were any supernatural things on the continent. The time and space channel was sealed again, and it would be stable for hundreds of years, but I was afraid that the Soul Clan would sneak in and live in the human body in advance. Combined with what the Emperor of Array said, Jun Changxiao roughly inferred that, if the Soul Clan wanted to become stronger, they might absorb human spiritual energy. As long as they didn't destroy the body, they should leave clues. However, after a careful search in Xiaotang, no such phenomenon had occurred, so he couldn't help but question whether he was a little too cautious. No, it's the best. Jun Changxiao leaned back in his chair and said, this way, the Soul Clan can't kill us, so we just have to wait for ourselves to kill them. Sect Master. Ding Xingwan walked in. Jun Changxiao and Li Luoqiu's eyes were dulled. Because not only did Ding's hair recover, but it also grew very long, so long that it was coiled around his waist several times. What on earth did you use on me? Ding Xingwan pushed aside his dense hair, revealing a collapsed old face. It's growing every day. How can I go out in the future? Cut it off. I cut it 8 times in 2 days, and it's getting longer and longer. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Others waited for my hair to grow to my waist and said, would you marry me? Ding Xingwan waited for my hair to grow to my waist and held the scissors every day. The main reason is that too much was used. It will return to normal after a few days of continuous growth. Sect Master. Dunan said with a smile, can you give me a bottle? Jun Changxiao patted his shoulder, looked at his shiny head and said, a Buddhist martial artist should look like a Buddhist martial artist. Come, lower your head, and I will burn a few scars on you. Forget it, I'll go clean the inner courtyard. Dunan disappeared in an instant. Sect Master. Wei Leole reported, a new batch of medicinal materials has matured. Yes. A smile appeared on Jun Changxiao's face. More Wu Wang pills can be refined, and the overall strength of the disciples will be improved again. Sect Master. Li Luoqiu walked in and said, there is something I must report to you. Go ahead. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Li Luoqiu said, Xiaotang sent information that the palace master of Maihua Palace left the sect and went to Nanhuangzhou. Why? Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Li Luoqiu said, Palace Master Xi was invited to go to Jiudu Palace. A 5th-rate evil sect? Yes. Jun Changxiao wondered. Maihua Palace is also a well-known and upright sect in the martial arts world. Why would Palace Master Xi go to an evil sect? As far as I know, Li Luoqiu said, Zijingxuan had a senior sister who was very powerful in my Alpha Palace. Later, she lost the competition for the position of Palace Master and left the sect with hatred and became a disciple of the Nine Poison Palace in Nanhuangsao. So, Jun Changxiao said, is the so-called invitation actually a hangman banquet? It's possible. Li Luoqiu said. In fact, if the matter of other sects is not very important, she will generally filter it out and not report it, but Zijingxuan and the sect master had some unclear relationship, so she still reported it after hesitation. Only Palace Master Zi went. Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xingaiu accompanied her. Hearing Leng Xingaiu, the face of Old Wei, who was sitting in the first seat on the side, became serious. Jun Changxiao caught it, so he said indifferently, Palace Master Zi is accompanied by 2 Peak Martial King Elders, so there should be no problem. Although the 9 Poison Palace is only 5th rate, its poison technique is unique in the world. If it has any ideas about Palace Master Zi, even if the Peak Martial King follows, it may not be safe. Old Wei said solemnly. What does Old Wei mean? Jun Changxiao said. Old Wei said, on the top of Huashan Mountain, the Palace Master of my Alpha Palace did not hesitate to offend 2 third-rate evil sects to cheer for my Wangu sect, so I think we should send someone to take a look. Jun Changxiao said. Old Wei is worried about his old lover. Old Wei said with a puzzled look, don't the sect leader worry about Palace Master Zi? Jun Changxiao said, Palace Master Zi and I are old friends. Since we know that she is going to the hangman banquet, we naturally can't sit idly by. Old Wei, take old Jiang to the 9 Poison Palace and use the excuse that Wangu sect is visiting. Yes. Old Wei hurriedly got up and flew to Nanhuangsao with Jiangzi at the fastest speed. On the way, he collapsed and secretly said, if Palace Master Zi really encountered trouble, the sect master would definitely be able to improve his favorability if he came to rescue him personally. In the end, he sent us here and sat in the sect himself. This is really hopeless. In the love field, Old Wei is definitely a king level, but facing the bronze level Jun Changxiao, he can only shout. He can't carry him. Palace Master Zi. Jun Changxiao stood outside the hall and said, I hope nothing will happen. He could have gone to Nanhuangsao in person, but after all, it was just a 5th-rate evil sect. Sending 2 emperor-level people over was already giving them face. Li Luoqiu muttered, if the disciple is in danger, the sect master is probably already killing people in Nanhuangsao now. Suddenly, the information sent by the members came to his ears. Master, a spy reported that in a dark forest in Danhaozhao that is rarely visited, all the vegetation within a 10-mile radius has withered, and there is no life at all. The exact location. In Kakaka, Jun Changxiao's armed wings spread out, and with the power of flight, they turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the sky. Li Luoqiu shook his head speechlessly. He left a beautiful woman alone, and was very active in this matter. Sure enough, when the master fell from a tree, when he was a child, he had serious problems. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 829, Wei Lao and Jiangzi are trapped in the 9 Poison Palace. Jun Changxiao rushed to Deng Hao's house as quickly as possible and landed in a mountain forest with no grass. In this area of more than 10 miles, all the trees, flowers, and plants have withered, and there is no sense of any vitality. The occasional wind blows, and it seems gloomy. Jun Changxiao frowned. The system said, from the situation here, it is very similar to what the Emperor Zen said. Could it be that the Soul Clan has made a comeback and attached itself to humans? This is a bit troublesome. Jun Changxiao said solemnly. The Soul Clan must not be underestimated for triggering the war among the emperors. If it is not found out as soon as possible and allowed to develop, it will definitely bring unimaginable consequences. The system said, doesn't the host care? When the nest is overturned, how can the eggs be intact? Jun Changxiao said, when the Soul Clan has become powerful and set off a bloody storm in the Xinjiang continent, my Wangu sect will definitely be affected. It is fortunate for the continent that the host can think so, the system said. Jun Changxiao squatted down, looked at the withered flowers, and said to himself, the Emperor of Array said that the Soul Clan can absorb the spiritual energy of warriors for their own use, so why do they absorb the insignificant energy of plants and trees? Simple. The system said, not strong enough. Jun Changxiao stood up, looked around, and said, so we must find the parasitic humans as soon as possible and wipe out the Soul Clan. However, how to find is a problem. Jun Changxiao's brain was working rapidly, and he said, since it is not strong enough, it needs more energy to grow stronger. As long as you pay more attention to remote areas, you should be able to find clues. Master. The sound of the spy from Xiaotang, who was hundreds of miles away, sounded in his ears. Disciple found another withered area. Swish. Jun Changxiao used his body skills and rushed to the second scene in just a few minutes. Everything around was also taken away by life, and there was even a skinny beast. This is an adult lynxing beast, weighing at least 1,000 pounds. The system said. Jun Changxiao said, being able to absorb the energy of fierce beasts, it seems that this Soul Clan is not as weak as imagined. More spies discovered the withering scene one after another. After investigating one by one, they finally concluded that this person should go to Southeast First State. Jun Changxiao flew into Southeast First State, which he had never been to before, but he searched for a whole day and still couldn't find the withering scene, so he wondered, didn't he come here? After returning to the sect, he ordered Li Luoqiu to quickly set up an intelligence network to cover Southeast First State. Yes. Master Li immediately got busy. Groups of Xiaotang members riding speed-type fierce beasts poured into Southeast First State. For now, the intelligence network of the Eternal Ancient Sect has extended very widely, but it is still a little time away from being fully laid out. Under normal development, Master Jun will definitely not be in a hurry. Now that the suspected Soul Clan has appeared, he can't wait to control the intelligence of the entire world, to the level of 1 post every 5 steps, and 1 sentry every 10 steps. In fact, he doesn't need to take on such matters concerning the world by himself, and he can also tell the major forces and relevant departments. I don't trust others, so I'd better investigate it slowly by myself. Jun Changxiao rubbed his temples, then got up early the next day and led his disciples to do morning exercises happily in the martial arts field. It's a big deal. It's not as important as dancing. Master. Just after dancing, Li Luoqiu hurried into the hall and said nervously, Old Wei and Elder Jiang are trapped in the 9 Poison Palace. What? Jun Changxiao stood up. A 5th-rate evil sect can actually trap 2 martial emperors? Li Luoqiu said, according to the news from Elder Jiang, the 2 were poisoned by several poisons, and the detoxification pills were ineffective. Although they have the power to protect themselves, they can't rescue Palace Master Z and others. Swish. Before he finished speaking, Jun Changxiao had disappeared in the hall. Sure enough, as Li Luoqiu said, if someone in the sect got into trouble, this guy would go faster than anyone else. Southern Wasteland State. There is a primitive forest with many poisonous creatures, such as scorpions, centipedes, spiders, etc. So it is called the 10,000 Poison Forest by the locals. 800 years ago, a warrior who was proficient in poison entered the sect and founded the 9 Poison Palace, which was famous for its 9 most powerful poisons. This sect did not have many disciples, and it took hundreds of years to be promoted to the 5th-rate sect, but the poison technique that was hard to defend against was feared by many large sects. Moreover, the most troublesome thing for warriors was that this evil sect also arranged poison miasma in the forest, and if you wanted to go in, you had to be prepared to resist the poison. Jun Changxiao had detoxification pills, and did not take the 9 Poison Palace seriously, so he sent Wei Lao and Jiang Zi over, but the 2 of them went in, but they were also trapped in the palace. I was careless, Jun Changxiao said secretly when he arrived. The system said, the detoxification pill can only detoxify hundreds of poisons. There are tens of thousands of toxins in the Xingqiu continent, so you have to refresh them all, and buy stronger detoxification pill formulas. It is indeed a qualified salesman who never forgets to instigate the host to consume at any time. Swish. Jun Changxiao ignored him and accelerated forward. An hour later, he came to the 10,000 poison forest in the southern wasteland state from the northwest Yangzhou. Whoosh! The cold wind blew from inside, exuding a nauseating breath. At this time, any warrior with experience in outdoor survival can instantly realize that there must be poisonous miasma in the mountains and forests. If you can't resolve it, you will die. Step. Jun Changxiao walked in and stepped on the rotten leaves. Centipedes, spiders and other poisonous creatures quickly rushed out. However, before they could launch an attack, they suddenly turned into ashes. After walking about 2 or 3 miles, swish, suddenly, a green giant python rushed out from the bushes, instantly wrapped around Jun Changxiao, and opened its big mouth to swallow his head. But then, a sense of crisis rose in his heart. He was about to let go of the human and escape, but it was too late. His whole body was burned to ashes in the high temperature. Jun Changxiao's whole body erupted with flames until it converged, and then he continued to move forward, and finally stopped in front of an area that looked like clouds and fog. This is miasma. It is highly poisonous. The system said. Let me try it out, to see how poisonous it is. Jun Changxiao walked in, then opened his mouth, and took a deep breath, only to see the rolling poisonous fog being absorbed into his body. If a warrior saw this at this time, his eyes would definitely pop out. In front of the miasma, who wouldn't think about how to avoid being affected by the toxins? This guy actually took the initiative to absorb it. Isn't he afraid of dying immediately? After about a moment, Jun Changxiao absorbed a lot of toxins. His face turned green and red, and it was obvious that the toxins were gathered in his body. Suddenly, various flames erupted all over his body, and he turned into a walking fireman again. The toxins attacking everywhere in his body were instantly evaporated into ashes. Puff! Jun Changxiao farted, and foul air gushed out from below. He shook his head and said, with a body of holy flame, why should I fear a mere toxin? Puff! 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 As he walked, he farted all the way. The miasma around him gradually faded, and a large-scale building complex gradually appeared in front of him. On the stone tablet covered with poisonous snakes and spiders were 3 blood-red characters: 9 Poison Palace. Dare to trap the people of my Wangdu sect. This sect has no need to exist. Puff. The system finally couldn't help but roared. Can you not expel the dissolved toxins in the form of farts? Chapter 830. I'm here. In the 9 Poison Palace, there is an area similar to a martial arts arena. Old Wei and Jiangzi sit cross-legged in it, surrounded by thick and strange clouds. This is a poisonous cloud, one of the 9 major toxins in the 9 Poison Palace. The toxicity is more than 10 times stronger than the miasma outside. When the poisonous cloud was first created, it was only effective for martial artists. As generations of people in the 9 Poison Palace studied it, the toxicity became more and more fierce. This is not it. Old Wei and Jiangzi, who are at the martial arts level, have been poisoned. Although they can suppress it with spiritual energy, they cannot move around casually, let alone burst out their cultivation at will, otherwise the toxicity will erode faster. This is very embarrassing. In fact, the two came to the 10,000 poison forest very cautiously. But there are too many toxins in it, and the detoxification pill can only dissolve part of it, so it is inevitable that they will be fooled. Thousands of disciples of the 9 Poison Palace gathered outside the poisonous cloud. They did not rush over. After all, the two trapped were martial arts emperors, and getting close would be a death sentence. The current situation is, Old Wei and Jiangzi can temporarily withstand the poison, and the people of the 9 Poison Palace dare not kill them, and the two sides are in a stalemate. You two. A clear voice came. Although my 9 Poison Palace is only 5th rate, our poison technique is the best in the world. How can you just break in casually? This sentence is not bragging. It must be a real skill to poison 2 martial emperors. In fact, the 9 Poison Palace's poison technique is not necessarily afraid of 3rd and 4th rate sects, but there are too few people practicing poison, and they have been in the 10,000 poison forest for many years without being involved in the secular world, so they are only 5th rate. Many forces are more concerned about the level of the sect to show their own strength, but some forces are not very concerned, or live in seclusion in the mountains, or do not fight with the world. Palace Master Mao. Old Welly suppressed the poison and said, "We are here to visit your palace on the orders of the sect master, not to cause trouble. Miao Seifeng, the current palace master of the 9 Poison Palace, a femme fatale. Visiting?" Miao Seifeng said calmly, "From my point of view, you came for my palace, right?" Old Welly did not deny it, and said, "As far as I know, there is no grudge between your Jiudu Palace and my Palace. Why did you trap Palace Master Z in the palace on the pretext of inviting you?" Hehe. A silver bell-like laughter came. "Do our 2 palaces have any grudges that need to be reported to your Wangu sect? Or do you think that you can be arrogant and interfere with other sects after winning the Dragon and Tiger Championship?" "Humph." Jiangzi said calmly, "We don't mean to make things difficult for your palace. You took action first. Do you think that my Wangu sect is easy to bully? If he hadn't been infected with the poison cloud and had to be suppressed, he would definitely be able to beat the Jiudu Palace with his martial emperor level strength. Palace Master Mao, my sect master has a bad temper. You'd better hand over the antidote and release Palace Master Z as soon as possible, otherwise you will bear the consequences," Old Welly said in a deep voice. Mao Seifeng laughed and said, "Welly Kingfeng, are you threatening me?" Old Welly was startled. "Do you know me?" He always goes by Leo Welly, and where is he when he travels around the world, and only Wei Kingfeng, you may have forgotten. Mao Seifeng said in a cold voice, "Back then, at the Cliff of Love, I made a promise to a young girl that I would hold your hand and grow old with you." Jiangzi's mouth twitched slightly. Making such a cheesy promise is in line with Old Welly's style. So, could this 9 Poison Palace be his ex-girlfriend? Cliff of Love, hold your hand, and grow old with you? Old Welly thought for a while, and said in surprise, "You are Sissy? Haha, I didn't expect you to still remember her. You are not Sissy? I can't even tell your voice apart. How could my mother be obsessed with you back then?" "Mother?" Old Welly was stunned and said, "Are you her daughter?" Jiangzi's face became interesting. The Lord of the 9 Poison Palace is the daughter of Wei Leo's old lover. Judging from her words, she seems to be very unfriendly. It may be a bit difficult to rescue a Lord Z. Wei Kingfeng, Mao Seifeng said in a cold voice, "If my mother hadn't repeatedly told me not to look for you, a heartless man, you would have died hundreds of times by now. How dare you come to the 9 Poison Palace? Sissy." Wei Leo's body shook, and his voice was almost hoarse. "No more." His face gradually became ferocious. This was not caused by the poison, but by the pain from the depths of his heart. Mao Seifeng scolded, "My mother's name, you are a scumbag, and you are not worthy to call it." Thousands of disciples were stunned. They had never seen the Lord get so angry. Wei Leo lowered his head and said with guilt, "Yes, I failed her. My sin is unforgivable." Jiangzi, who was sitting cross-legged next to him, collapsed. "Wei Leo, just take out your rich love history and you can publish a book." Wei Kingfeng, Mao Seifeng said in a sinister voice, "I promised my mother that I would not seek revenge on you, a heartless man, in my lifetime. But since you have come to my door today, I will rush in, even if there is a way to heaven. Child." Old Welly raised his head with great effort. His eyes reddened as he said, "Can you tell me how your mother passed away?" "She died of depression because of you, a heartless and unfaithful man." It was not difficult to hear from the voice that Mao Seifeng must have said it with gritted teeth. Puff. Old Welly spurted out a mouthful of blood, his face extremely pale. The poison of the poisonous cloud could not break through the defense line, but when he learned that the woman he once loved died of depression because of him, all the defense lines completely collapsed, and he raised his head and yelled, "Ah!" The voice was painful and regretful. "Old Welly." Jiangzi hurriedly sent a voice message, "Don't be confused." It was too late. Old Welly's mind had long been disturbed by Sis's departure. The poison was frantically eroding his body, but the pain it brought was far from comparable to the pain in his heart. "Brother Kingfeng, I came out of Nanhuangshao alone. Thanks to you, I was not bullied by bad guys. So, you and I are destined to be together. Brother Kingfeng, Sissy only has you in her heart, and can no longer accommodate other men. You must not let me down. If I'll let you down, I will accept it. Stop talking. Brother Kingfeng is going to start a big career. I can't help him. I will wait for you until the day you succeed and become famous. This matter is over. I will hold your hand and grow old with you. Under the cliff of love, the romantic and suave Wei Qingfeng turned and left, leaving the beauty looking at him in tears. This perfect match has been separated for hundreds of years. When they mention it again today, they have already been separated by the yin and yang, and the ghosts have gone their separate ways. Old Wei covered his chest. His heart, chest, and even his whole body seemed to be cut by a knife. Wei Qingfeng, stop pretending. Miao Jinfeng said coldly, I know you very well. You are a heartless man who flirts with women everywhere. There are at least 80 women who have been ruined by you for their whole lives. Old Wei said to himself with a painful face, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have betrayed you. Go to the underworld and tell it. Swish, swish, swish. In an instant, cold light burst out, and Old Wei, who had already collapsed, didn't notice it at all. Ding, ding, ding. Dozens of poison needles all hit the spiritual armor condensed by Jiangzi, and shouted, Old Wei, cheer up. When he moved, the poison gas quickly took the upper hand, and devoured the meridians crazily, making his face more ferocious. Humph. Miao Seifeng said coldly, not to mention my mother's matter, just trespassing into the 9 Poison Palace. The two of you will definitely die, even if Jun Changxiao came in person. Excuse me. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Jiangzi, who had been suppressing the poison by force, was overjoyed when he heard that. Sect Master. Step. On the stone slab leading to the martial arts arena, Jun Changxiao, a man dressed in white and elegant, walked over. He opened a folding fan with the words handsome and compelling written on it and said, I'm here. P.S. Thanks to for the reward. The 4th update is presented. Chapter 831 Shocked. The leader of the Eternal Sect actually openly. Jun Changxiao waved his folding fan and stood on the martial arts field. If he was shown a video formation lens at this time, he would surely be able to charm thousands of girls. However, such an elegant and graceful man actually expelled the dissolved toxins in that way just now. The miasma outside is gone, but there is another kind. Sect Master. Jiangzi transmitted his voice. There are many toxins gathered here, and the detoxification pills are difficult to dissolve. Don't be fooled. Swish. Jun Changxiao waved his hand and threw the modified multifunctional vacuum cleaner over, saying, see if you can suck out the poison. This. Jiangzi's face was stunned. However, thinking that the evil spirit of Elder Ding could be absorbed, the poisonous gas should also be able to be absorbed, so he grabbed the handle and directly put the flat suction nozzle on Elder Wen's face. Snap. Start the first gear. Whoosh. The strong suction force suddenly burst out, and the black toxins could be seen by the naked eye flowing along Elder Wen's skin, and then were absorbed into the vacuum cleaner. Okay. Jiangzi was overjoyed. Jun Changxiao breathed a sigh of relief and thought to himself, sure enough, the poison gas is not clean either. Palace Master Miao. He said lightly, I came to visit you in person as you wished. As the master, it is a bit inappropriate to hide in the dark, right? A graceful figure gradually emerged from the depths of the poisonous substance, saying, Master Jun, I didn't invite you. I sent 2 martial emperors first, and now I come here by myself. What is your intention? It's very simple. Jun Changxiao said, hand over Palace Master Z. Since the vacuum cleaner can solve the toxins, Wei Lao and Jiangzi are also safe. Next, Zi Jingxuan will be taken away. Although he is at the bronze level in the love field, if he rescues his own people and leaves them here in this situation, it would be really a god operation. Gradually, Miao Seifeng emerged from the poisonous fog. This is a slender and beautiful woman with black hair scattered like a waterfall and a pair of eyes as clear as a stream. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, Palace Master Miao is very beautiful. She doesn't practice martial arts but poison. I'm afraid no man will dare to marry her in this life. Miao Seifeng's appearance is indeed good. If the full score is 10, she can get at least 8.5 points. However, Jun Gaosheng didn't get upset at all, which shows that he is very good at resisting beauty, or he suffers from prosopagnosia and can't tell who is beautiful and who is not. Miao Seifeng smiled and said, Master Jun cares so much about Palace Master Z, is it possible that you are related? Stop talking nonsense. Jun Changxiao said coldly, if you don't hand over the person quickly, I will raze this place to the ground. Very fierce. Very manly. Hehe. Miao Seifeng covered her mouth and laughed, laughing coquettishly. After a while, her eyes gradually became cold. Jun Changxiao, do you really think my 9 poison palace is a soft persimmon? What else? As soon as Jun Changxiao finished speaking, a strong aura burst out and instantly enveloped the martial arts field. Thousands of disciples were suppressed and frozen in place like stone statues. Their eyes were filled with horror. At that moment, they could feel that if the other party was slightly unhappy or thought could wipe them out, the strength of the disciples of the 9 poison palace is generally at the level of martial arts apprentices and martial arts masters. In front of the peak sword and martial arts double emperor Jun Changxiao, they are really just ants. Wei Lao and Jiangzi can do it. It's a pity that they were hit by the poison cloud and released the air domain recklessly, which would accelerate the erosion of the toxins. It's strange to say, Miao Seifeng did not suppress it, but smiled and said, Master Jun has profound skills, which makes people admire it. Jun Changxiao said, Palace Master Miao is so confident, is it because of the 9 kinds of toxins that your palace is proud of? Didn't Master Jun realize that when releasing the air domain, the toxins had already penetrated into the body? Miao Seifeng smiled. Jun Changxiao frowned slightly. The moment the air domain was unfolded, the toxins in the air merged into the body at a very fast speed and attached to various meridians. Miao Seifeng said with a smile, this is the heart-eating poison, one of the 9 poisons in my 9 poison palace. As long as someone releases their aura or bursts out their cultivation, they will take advantage of the situation to enter. TSK. Jun Changxiao said lightly, it's just a little poison, it can't do anything to me. I forgot to tell Sect Master Jun. Miao Seifeng said with a smile, the stone slab under your feet is stained with one of the 9 poisons, the heart-drilling poison. If you are poisoned by the heart-eating poison, this poison will also take advantage of the situation to enter. Jun Changxiao noticed the toxin seeping into the soles of his feet and shook his head and said, no wonder the 2 martial emperors of our sect were trapped here. The poison in your palace is really hard to guard against. But, he paused and said, what about the other poisons? Miao Seifeng frowned slightly. The heart-eating poison and the heart-piercing poison entered his body at the same time, and the poison should have taken effect by now. Why can this person still be so calm? Is it possible that he is so strong that he can suppress it temporarily? As expected of the leader of the eternal ancient sect who has recently become famous in the martial arts world, he can resist the 2 kinds of poisons in my palace and still be able to talk and laugh. Miao Seifeng said coldly, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Jun Changxiao said modestly. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, Miao Seifeng waved her jade hand, and dozens of cold lights flashed over. Jun Changxiao waved his sleeves, and caught all the flying silver needles, and hidden weapons in his palms, and said with a smile, if I guess correctly, this should also be one of the 9 poisons of the palace? Miao Seifeng said with a smile, since you know it, you still dare to catch it with your hands. Sect Master Jun is really skilled and bold. There are still 6 kinds missing, use them all. Jun Changxiao said, today, I want the skilled and bold to try whether the 9 poisons of the 9 poisons palace are the best in the world. Jiangzi, who was helping old Wei absorb the poison, almost fell to the ground when he heard it. Sect Master, since you can still bear it, why don't you just take action to take this woman down? Why do you have to experience the 9 poisons? Jiangzi didn't understand what it meant to pretend. Sect Master Jun, with your cultivation level, 1 poison may not work, but now 3 poisons have entered your body. Even if you have the cultivation level of Martial Saint, you can only wait for the poison to kill you. Miao Seifeng said proudly. In terms of cultivation, she and her disciples are not as good as those of the 5th-rate sects, but they are absolutely confident in the way of poison and the use of poison. So you don't plan to use other poisons? Jun Chang smiled. Seeing that this guy always looked calm, Miao Seifeng wanted to press his face to the ground and rub it hard. It is very difficult to refine the 9 poisons of my 9 poison palace, so they will naturally not be wasted because of you alone. Okay. Jun Chang smiled and said, then I will show my ugliness. poo, the whole body suddenly burst into colorful flames, which can be said to be quite colorful. Miao Seifeng's smile froze, and her eyes widened as she said, red star absolute flame. Purple mysterious holy fire. Heavenly spirit blue flame. You have a holy flame body that burns everything. What else? Jun Changxiao, who was in the flames, was like a fire god descending to the world, and the scorching temperature that spread out burned everything around him. Under the burning of the strongest flame, all toxins were like nothingness. Puff. Suddenly, a billowing mist sprayed out of his butt. After hearing this, Wei Lao and Jiangzi rolled their eyes and collapsed. Most of the 9 Poison Palace disciples were not spared, and fainted on the spot. They remained standing, only because of the suppression of the key domain. Miao Seifeng's expression completely collapsed. This guy is the leader of a sect after all, but he openly behaved so shamelessly and uncivilized. Swish. Jun Changxiao appeared in front of Miao Seifeng, stretched out his hands suddenly, tore the invisible barrier of the formation, clasped her delicate neck, and pulled her back, pressing her against the wall of the hall with a bang. From the perspective of a romantic drama, this is a domineering president who gave a woman a wall dang, and then said coldly, "Woman, love me." However, Jun Changxiao locked her throat. His eyes coldly said, "Hand over Palace Master Z, and I will spare your life." Cap. With a little effort, the sound of bones was clearly heard. Pity women? Not exist. PS. The 5th update, the end of the month. Please recommend votes, monthly votes. Chapter 832 Let's see who dares to move. The level of the aura release by Jun Changxiao is very strong. Even the martial emperors of the same level may not be able to withstand it, so why is Miao Seifeng, who is only a martial sect, not affected? Because there is a formation, which not only covers her, but also covers the hall. Jun Changxiao, who has the attainments of formation, discovered it at the first time, so he decided to break the formation. In order not to alert the woman, he deliberately endured 3 kinds of toxins. So, from this, it can be seen that Jun Changxiao is not pretending to be cool, not showing off the body of the holy flame, but has his own ideas. Miao Seifeng's face became more and more ferocious, and there was disbelief in his eyes. The 3 kinds of toxins gathered in his body, even if they could not poison him to death, they should be able to limit the burst of cultivation. Why can he still rush over unscrupulously? Moreover, there is a formation with extremely strong defense in front of him. Why is it so vulnerable to being broken? Miao Seifeng can face Jun Changxiao fearlessly, relying on the toxins and formations that exist everywhere in the sect. When the 2 things don't work, she is really worse than an ant. Crack. The hand strength increased again. Jun Changxiao said in a cold voice, "I have many ways to make your death more painful than poisoning." Cough, cough. Miao Seifeng was pinched so hard that her breathing became rapid and her face became more ferocious. This woman was also arrogant. Even if she was trapped between life and death, she still had no intention of compromising. Speak. Jun Changxiao said coldly, "Where is Palace Master Z?" His spiritual thoughts had been released long ago, but there were many formations and poisonous fog areas in the 9 Poison Palace, and he could not search carefully. The system collapsed and said, "Relax a little, so that they can talk more easily." That's right. Jun Changxiao retracted some of his strength. In this way, Miao Seifeng's pain was immediately relieved a lot, and he tried to force his smile and said, "Master Jun cares so much about Zi Jingsun. She must be your lover." What do you mean? Jun Changxiao heard that she had something else in her words. Miao Seifeng's smile became more and more ferocious, and more terrifying. There are 9 kinds of poisons in my 9 Poison Palace. 4 can be used directly, and 5 cannot be used directly, because they exist in the poison abyss. Catcher. Jun Changxiao increased his strength again and said coldly, "Did you throw Palace Master Z into the poison abyss? All 5 poisons are present, and there is no cure." Miao Seifeng said ferociously, "Go west along the main hall. There is a valley. You rush over now, or maybe you can see your lover for the last time." Bang. Jun Changxiao grabbed her head and slammed it against the wall, causing her to faint on the spot, and then flew towards the west of the main hall at a high speed. "Palace Master." As he left, the key domain also dissipated, and the disciples of the Nine Poison Palace rushed over one after another. Jiangzi pulled hard and pulled the flat mouthpiece off his face and shouted loudly with Qia and Anshan, "Let's see who dares to move Yu-Hu." The key domain exploded and filled the martial arts field. The disciple of the Nine Poison Palace who had just broken free from his restraints moved slowly again and then froze on the spot. This was not a direct suppression, but a loss of mind due to the roar. The toxins in his body were gone, and Elder Jiang regained his manliness. As for Elder Wei, although the toxins were removed, he was still stagnant in the same place. When I was young, I gave up love for my brothers and career, but in the end I didn't keep anything, and I felt a burst of pain in my heart. Elder Wei. Jiangzi's imagination opened up. Your name has Feng, and her name has Feng. Could it be your daughter? Don't talk nonsense. Elder Wei said, although Sissy and I have loved each other, we didn't do anything beyond the limit. He is very affectionate, but he doesn't have to take down one person if he loves one. He is a little better than the scumbag who turns his face and refuses to admit it after pulling up his pants. To the west of the main hall, there is a valley filled with poisonous gas. This is the forbidden area of the Nine Poison Palace. Without the handwritten order of the top leaders, no one is allowed to enter without permission. At this moment, in the central area of the valley, Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai were tied to the pillars. Although their eyes were filled with endless anger, their faces looked extremely weak. They were poisoned. Something like cartilage powder. Two elders. A beautiful woman in her early 20s smiled and said, "If you had nominated me as the palace master of Maihua Palace, you wouldn't have ended up like this." Tan Huang. Leng Xinggai scolded, "We have long seen that you have evil intentions, so how could we give you the position of palace master?" Tan Huang gritted her teeth and said, "Xi Jinxian has done such unjust things as killing her father and mother, so how can she be righteous? There is a reason." "Stop talking." Tan Huang said coldly, "Today, I will let the blind girl you have recommended with great effort die in this poisonous abyss with all 5 poisons." Changsan Fanghe scolded, "Tan Huang, if you dare to hurt the palace master, the Grand Elder will never forgive you." "Grand Elder?" Tan Huang sneered and said, "Although she has entered the emperor level, she is nothing but sending herself to death in the Nine Poison Palace." Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai looked ugly. They really didn't expect that a 5th-rate sect would be so powerful. She was poisoned as soon as she came in. If they knew that this would be the result, they would never let the palace master come to the appointment. "Oh, that's right." Tan Huang said with a sinister smile. "The Eternal Sect sent 2 elders, but they are now trapped in the poisonous cloud. They are also martial emperors. Do you still think that the Great Elder can do anything to me? Someone from the Eternal Sect?" Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai were overjoyed. Although they were always wary of Jun Changxiao and didn't want to get too close to the palace master, they had to admit that this boy was very powerful. Now that he sent someone here, he must know that the palace master was trapped in the Nine Poison Palace. Tan Huang. Leng Xinggai said coldly, "You dare to offend the people of the Eternal Sect in the Nine Poison Palace. Just wait to be exterminated." "Exterminate the whole family?" Tan Huang sneered. "Let's see if the martial saint can do it." As she said that, she walked to the wellhead in front and said, "Xi Jinxian, you stole my position as palace master back then. Today I will make you live a life worse than death." Snap. Grab the joystick next to it. The bottom of this well is the poison abyss. The joystick is the starting device. As long as it is pulled down, 5 kinds of poison will be sprayed out. At that time, if a warrior is even slightly touched, he will be incurable and suffer from various toxins and die in pain. Senior Sister Tan, Xi Jinxian, who was in the poison abyss, said weakly, "In your eyes, is the position of palace master so important?" Although she would act like a little woman in front of Jun Changxiao, she could be so calm and composed when facing life and death, which shows that she has a big heart. "If I lose to other fellow disciples, I will naturally not care." Tan Huang gritted her teeth and said, "But I'm really unwilling to lose to a blind man like you." Xi Jinxian said, "This is the intention of the Grand Elder and the elders. I can only obey. I don't intend to snatch the position of palace master from senior sister. Stop pretending to be pitiful here." Tan Huang said angrily. Click. The joystick was pulled down suddenly, and the wellhead was completely blocked by some special stone slabs. Chapter 833, Beauty and Fate. Boom. The stone slab completely sealed the wellhead, and the interior suddenly became dark. At this time, if it were anyone else, they would definitely be scared out of their wits, but Zijingsuan looked calm, because she had lived in darkness since she was born. Are you going to die? She huddled in a corner, struggling to hold her curled legs with her hands. It was not because she was afraid, but because she had no strength due to poisoning. Whoosh. 5 colors of poisonous gas slowly sprayed out along the gap and gradually gathered in the well. At that moment, Zijingsuan realized that she was about to die, and there was no fear on her face, but relief. Facing the darkness every day made her fearless of death. However, not completing the mission of the previous palace master and making Maihua Palace a step further is the biggest regret. Zijingsuan buried her head in her knees and murmured, I didn't see the appearance of Jun Changxiao carefully. In her dark life, there was only a brief moment of light. At that time, I remembered a vague face. Although it was different from what I imagined, at least I could think about it when I had nothing to do. Someone will ask, why did Zijingsuan care about Jun Changxiao? This was the reason. In the dark life of more than 20 years, someone finally appeared in her sight. Master Jun. Zijingsuan blamed herself and said, I'm sorry to trouble you. She heard what Tan Huang said just now, and she also knew that the elders of the Wangdu sect had come. Who? More and more toxins gathered in the poison abyss. They had no feelings or thoughts, and they ruthlessly penetrated into the body of this weak woman. Zijingsuan felt a headache, felt very sleepy and tired, so she lay down lightly. Swish. Tan Huang grabbed the long sword next to her and walked towards Changsun Fanghua and Leng Xingaiu, saying, the 5 kinds of poisons in the poison abyss are the most strange poisons in the world. Anyone who touches them will die. Changsun Fanghua and Leng Xingaiu's faces changed drastically. Ha ha ha. Tan Huang laughed like crazy and then approached step by step. Back then, I served you carefully and cautiously, hoping to be valued, but in the end I was expelled from the sect. Why is this? Because you just want to be the palace master. I have the ability and qualifications 100 times stronger than Zijingsuan. Why can't I be the palace master? If you want to know the reason, I will tell you today. Changsun Fanghua raised her head with difficulty. Before the previous palace master left, she deduced that Zijingsuan's succession to the palace master would make the sect more glorious, and if you succeeded the palace master, it would only lead to destruction. The palace master was in deep crisis and could not break free. Since it was a matter of death, it didn't matter if he told the secret of the year. So this is a reason why Zijingsuan succeeded the palace master and abandoned me. Ha ha ha. Tan Huang stopped laughing and her face gradually became ferocious. But now it seems that she did you strongly, and letting a blind man inherit the position of palace master would lead to destruction. Swish. He suddenly swung his sword and chopped at Changsun Fanghua. This woman has lost her mind. She not only wants to kill Zijingsuan, but also the senior officials of Maihua Palace. Because only in this way can she deny the deduction of the former palace master and prove that the woman who took over as palace master is a culprit for the sect's demise. Changsun Fanghua closed her eyes. The palace master was trapped in the poison abyss and was eroded by the 5 poisons. I failed to protect her, and I'm ashamed of the former palace master's entrustment and the ancestors in the afterlife. Ding. Suddenly, a crisp sound came over. Changsun Fanghua noticed the sound of the wind caused by the sword passing by her neck, so she opened her eyes in a hurry. In the field of vision, a man in white fell. Although he had his back to her, she instantly thought of that hot man. Looking at the sword that was broken by a beam of light, Tan Huang asked in surprise, who are you? Snap. Jun Changxiao grabbed her neck and lifted her up and said coldly, where is Palace Master Z? The system complained, only when the host is ruthless will he take advantage of other girls like crazy, although the method is a bit extreme. Sect Master Jun. Leng Xingaiu was the first to come to her senses and hurriedly said, the palace master is locked in the well in front, and there are 5 kinds of poisons in it. She and Changsun Fanghua had given up, but the appearance of Jun Changxiao made the 2 of them seem to have grasped a life-saving straw and rekindled hope. This man is very powerful and extraordinary, and he will definitely save the palace master from danger. Swish. Jun Changxiao found the blocked wellhead, dragged Tan Huang over, and said, "Open it. Open. Can't open it." Tan Huang's voice was hoarse from being strangled. Only when the poison gas dissipates, it will automatically. Bang. Before she finished speaking, she was thrown to the ground fiercely. Jun Changxiao used a lot of strength, and Tan Huang's meridians were damaged all over her body, and she lost the ability to stand up. She endured the pain, but was thinking that to get here, she had to pass through the main hall of the 9 Poison Palace, where the palace master and the high-level officials were. How could he break through? Bang. Jun Changxiao stood in front of the wellhead blocked by the stone slab, infused his spiritual energy into his fist, and slammed it hard on the stone slab. As a result, it didn't move at all. The system said, "This is a very dense stone. If you want to break it." Ka. Jun Changxiao raised his fist again, and the iron blocks gathered around him in an instant, as if he was wearing the gloves of the Iron Man. Okay. Pretend I didn't say that. Who? Under the stimulation of the mechanical armed wing combat form, Jun Changxiao gathered all his spiritual energy, and slammed it hard on the stone slab. This punch was quite explosive. Not only did it shatter it with a bang, but it also turned it into powder. Hoo. The moment the well mouth was blasted open, the 5 toxins inside gushed out crazily. Swish. Jun Changxiao jumped down without any hesitation, and fell into the bottom of the well dozens of feet deep. He picked up Zijingxuan, who was trapped in the poisonous fog. The whole process was very short. When he flew out of the well, he only felt that the 5 toxins that had penetrated into his body were madly disturbing his meridians, and the discomfort he brought was even stronger than the other 3 just now. Hoo. The fire in his body broke out and spread instantly. The strongest and fiercest flame purified all the toxins, and then gradually relaxed his brows. Tan Huang turned sideways and saw that Jun Changxiao could jump up after jumping down, as if nothing had happened. Her eyes almost popped out. All 5 poisons are present, and death is certain. Why can this guy come out safely after going in? Swish. There was no time to think about it, because Tan Huang suddenly felt her body floating up, and then fell headfirst into the well, so she ignored the pain all over her body, and howled in despair. No. A miserable cry came from the poison abyss. The 5 toxins penetrated into Tan Huang's body, and the pain brought by them was really indescribable. The bound Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai heard a chill behind them, and looked at Zijingxuan lying in Jun Changxiao's arms, and cried out in grief, "Palace Master. Sorry." Jun Changxiao lowered his head and said, "I'm late." He was not talking to Zijingxuan, but to the 2 elders. Because although the woman in his arms seemed to be asleep, she had stopped breathing, heartbeat, and life when she was rescued. Alas. The system sighed, "Beauty is short-lived." Chapter 834 The Darkening Zijingxuan. When Jun Changxiao was locking his throat and interrogating Miao Seifeng, Tan Huang had already pulled down the joystick. Although he rushed over as quickly as possible and violently broke through the many formations, he was still a step too late. Zijingxuan was too deeply poisoned and had long lost her life. With all 5 poisons, she will definitely die. As long as it penetrates into the body of a warrior, even a god cannot save her. When Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai saw the palace master's hands hanging down, they were suddenly filled with grief and their eyes were blurred with tears. They thought that with the arrival of Jun Zhangsu, the palace master could turn the danger into safety, but the result was still irreversible. "I'm sorry." Jun Changxiao stood there holding Zijingxuan, and his self-blame and pain surged into his sea of consciousness like a flood. If he had taken the 9 Poison Palace to heart and came to rescue her in person, how could she have died? Blame me. It's all my fault. Jun Changxiao and Zijingxuan were not what Miao Seifeng thought. But after all, they had known each other for a long time and were friends. How could he not be sad about her death now? Suddenly, Jun Changxiao was filled with murderous intent. He had only one thought in his mind, to destroy the 9 Poison Palace and burn all the poisons here. Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai looked at the murderous man with fear in their eyes. At this moment, they seemed to be looking at a demon from hell instead of a human. Cough. Suddenly, a light gasp sounded. Jun Changxiao, who was about to set fire to the mountain, looked stunned. He hurriedly looked down and saw Jingxian opening her small mouth and breathing rapidly, as if she had been holding her breath for a long time, and her pale face gradually became rosy. She is not dead. She is still alive. Hoo-hoo. Suddenly, a strong wave of air erupted from Jingxian's body, blowing away her 3,000 black hairs, and red lines appeared on her left face, which was as white as cream, like some kind of weird tattoo. Jun Changxiao was stunned. Since meeting and getting to know Jingxian, but not falling in love, this woman has always been half covered by her bangs. At first, he thought it might be a hairstyle design like this. Now that there are marks on her face, it means she is deliberately covering it up. Jun Changxiao didn't have time to think. He put one hand on Jingxian's wrist. Although he felt a slight pulse, there were 5 toxins in her body fighting against another strange breath. The situation is still precarious. Ding. The host consumes 1000 contribution points and obtains a magic modified multifunctional vacuum cleaner X1, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Before the prompt sound ended, Jun Changxiao put Jingxian on the ground, took out the newly bought vacuum cleaner, pointed the flat nozzle at his face, and put it on his wrist with a snap, and directly turned on the 3rd gear mode. The system has never seen the host buy goods so quickly. If only every time you buy something, it would be so fast. It's about life. Jun Changxiao must not delay at all. Under the 3rd gear suction, the 5 toxins in Jingxian's body that were fighting against another breath were immediately sucked out. Jun Changxiao breathed a sigh of relief. However, Chang Fanghe and Leng Xinggai were stunned. What was that guy doing to the palace master with a broom-like thing in his hand? There are many ways to detoxify. The most common one is that the detoxifier sits cross-legged behind the poisoned person, puts his palms on his back, and uses his deep internal force to force the toxins out of the body. The most powerful one is the yin-yang harmony, and going to wash and to detoxify together. In this case, the poisoned person and the detoxifier must be a man and a woman or a woman and a man. If anyone thinks that men and men are okay, or women and women are okay, please go to the hospital for a psychological examination as soon as possible, and I will pay for the medical expenses. Jun Changxiao did not take the usual path. He used a vacuum cleaner to detoxify the beautiful woman who was trapped in a desperate situation, and the effect was very good. In a short while, all 5 toxins were sucked away. But another attribute in the body was also sucked along. Jun Changxiao was stunned. After many tests, the energy sucked away by the vacuum cleaner was not proper, such as evil spirits, demonic spirits, and poisonous spirits. It's understandable that the 5 toxins were sucked away, but the strange aura that fought against the toxins also came with it, which means that this thing is not clean either. Well, let's suck it out by the way. Although the strange aura was pulled out, it still resisted stubbornly. Hey, it's quite persistent. Bang. Suddenly, Jingxian waved her jade hand and knocked the flat suction mouth away. Her body stood up in a flash, and a strong air wave burst out from her body, blowing 3,000 hairs flying. The left face was exposed, and the complex lines flashed and extended to the left eye, and the pupil gradually reflected the strange pattern. Blood we lie. Jun Changxiao frowned. Seeing the palace master suddenly stand up, Chang Fanghe and Leng Xinggai were overjoyed. However, seeing her long hair flying, and the terrifying and violent aura bursting out from her body, they were surprised and said, the palace master is out of control again. Jingxian would fall into a state of outrage when she was depressed. The two had seen each other many times, but the momentum she exuded this time was stronger and more terrifying than before. If rampage is divided into levels 1, 2, and 3, this woman is now in level 10 rampage state. Palace Master Jun Changxiao had just opened his mouth when the doc and Jingxian suddenly turned her head to the side, her eyes flashing with murderous intent. She gently raised her jade hand, and a burst of energy of unknown nature burst out. Boom. A strong wind suddenly rose, and dust flew. Jun Changxiao crossed his hands, and took the energy. He was surprised, and said in his heart, the power is a bit strong. Swish. Jingxian rushed over, and the strange attributes behind her burst out, as if it turned into a big net pressing down. If it was someone else, Jun Changxiao would definitely knock him to the ground with a punch without saying a word, and then press his head on the ground and rub it hard. But now it was his friend who rushed over. How could he do it? Swish, swish, swish. The pressing net instantly turned into dense fist prints, and launched a wild bombardment. Boom, boom, boom. Jun Changxiao opened the gas wall, and took all the punches. He estimated secretly, her current strength is probably not inferior to that of a high-grade martial emperor. Palace Master Z, calm down. Swish. Xi Jingsun, who had completely turned black, raised her fist and punched over. The red pattern in her left eye became brighter and brighter, and the power of the explosion was stronger than before. Jun Changxiao dodged the bombardment, and stepped back a few steps. He thought to himself, Palace Master Z's rampage should be related to the attributes in his body and the blood red eyes. That's right. The system said, I have analyzed it. This is a kind of energy that can control thinking. It may be the Soul Clan. Soul Clan. Jun Changxiao's face suddenly became ugly. He had considered whether there were any Soul Clans among the people he had contacted. This speculation came from the fact that in dog blood plots, there is often a law that the closest people may be controlled. Jun Changxiao had thought about Ziguancan, Ma Yunteng, and even Brother Green Scarf, but he had never thought about Xi Jingsun. Just now the vacuum cleaner pulled out the strange energy. If the Soul Clan occupied Palace Master Z's body, it should be effective against this kind of creature. Xi Jingsun came over again. Although her power suddenly increased a lot, she still couldn't do anything to a peak emperor. Jun Changxiao bypassed it, raised his hand, and said in a deep voice, come on, vacuum cleaner. Swish. The magic modified vacuum cleaner in the distance suddenly flew over, and was carried on his back, instantly turning into a cleaner doing housework. Palace Master Z. Jun Changxiao held the flat nozzle and said, excuse me. Swish. He rushed over with his body skills, and his left hand suddenly burst out spiritual energy, turning into a materialized big hand, binding the blackened Xi Jingsun, and then driven by the power, with a bang, he slammed the wall against the valley wall. System. When dealing with an unfamiliar woman like Mao Seifeng, it doesn't matter where to start, but it's a bit too much to use so much force against an acquaintance. Jun Changxiao can't be blamed. He must use the most powerful means to control the evil Xi Jingsun. Snap. Press the red button, and the enhanced mode starts. Jun Changxiao raised his flat nozzle, and pressed it against the struggling Xi Jingsun's arm, shouting coldly, unclean thing, get out of here. PS. In view of the feedback from many readers, they often read Jun Changxiao as Jun Chang, Xiao, so the author is considering using Jun Gaosheng instead. If you agree, deduct 1. If you disagree, deduct 2. Chapter 835, Averting Danger. If Mo Shang and Ying Leo were at the scene, they would definitely hug each other and cry. Why should the vacuum cleaner automatically suck our heads and take away our hair after it is turned on? Why should it suck Xi Jingsun's arms? This is because Jun Changxiao used a lot of force to hold down the flat nozzle and aim it at the girl's hand instead of her head. If it was someone else, it would just go with the flow. When the enhanced mode is activated, the suction force generated by the vacuum cleaner is quite explosive. The violent aura released from Xi Jingsun's body cannot be resisted at all, and she was sucked away in the blink of an eye. Jun Changxiao did not relax his vigilance. Because the released attributes were taken away, the attributes in the body were still there. He didn't care whether it was the work of the Soul Clan, or whether it could help Xi Jingsun improve her strength. As long as it controls the mind and makes people lose their rationality, they must be eliminated, and nothing can be left. More and more energy was sucked away. Xi Jingsun, who was wall banged against the wall by the psychic hand, had her long hair scattered, and her cold eyes gradually became clear. In particular, the left pupil pattern and the lines on the side of the face were dim, as if they were about to disappear at any time. Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu looked dazed. Suddenly, they heard the words that the previous palace master had said before leaving. The lines on this girl's face will not fall into a rampage state, only if they disappear completely. At this moment. Now, isn't it disappearing? Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu were ecstatic. The palace master did not die in the poison abyss. If the rampage strange disease is cured, it will definitely be a blessing in disguise. At that moment, the two elders of my author palace had a rising favorability towards Jun Changxiao, who, the strong suction force continued to erupt. The domineering attribute of controlling the mind in Zhijingxuan's body was still being taken out in an endless stream and finally loaded into the dust storage device. Although she had been trying to resist, she couldn't rush out at all. 1 minute later, the pattern on Zhijingxuan's left eye faded, the lines on her face disappeared, her head fell to one side, and she fell into a coma. Jun Changxiao turned off the vacuum cleaner, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and breathed a sigh of relief. Finally done. Finally got her out of danger. Plop. Because the spiritual hand dissipated, Zhijingxuan lost her balance and fell down. Jun Changxiao, Changsan Fanghe and Lengxing Gaiu. The system collapsed and said, is it more important to wipe the sweat or the girl? He can't tell at all. All of you squat down. In the martial arts arena, the existing poisonous cloud has been sucked up by the vacuum cleaner. Jiangzi is standing with his hands behind his back and scolding in a deep voice. At this moment, the elders and disciples of the Nine Poison Palace are all squatting on the ground. This sect is very strong in using poison, but once it loses its effect, it is no problem to send any outer disciple of the Eternal Ancient Sect to beat them 100 times. It's over. It's over. An elder collapsed in his heart. She didn't approve of the palace master helping Tan Huaying to deal with the palace master of Myoho Palace. After all, it was a fourth-rate sect, but she never expected that the Eternal Ancient Sect was involved. According to the information received, this newly rising sect has destroyed many evil sects, especially two third-rate evil sects, which have also been defeated. Now that they are controlled by them, the end is definitely to be destroyed. Hoo-hoo. Suddenly, a heavy power came. Everyone looked sideways, and their eyes almost popped out. Just looking at the location of the main hall, two dragon-like and elephant-like creatures suddenly appeared, bursting with pressure that seemed to come from ancient times. Oh my god. Jiangzi said in shock, what's going on? Boom boom. The power of the dragon and elephant pressed down mercilessly, and the main hall of the Nine Poison Palace, which had existed for hundreds of years, suddenly ceased to exist, and a pit dozens of feet deep was sunken. The dust gradually dissipated. Jun Changxiao came over holding Zhijingxuan. Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm, used to destroy buildings. It will make me lose my figure. Although Tan Huaying died tragically in the poison abyss, Zhijingxuan almost died, so the Nine Poison Palace had no need to exist. In fact, just by trapping Wei Leo and Jiangzi, Jun Changxiao had given enough reason to destroy them. Changsan Fanghe and Lengxing Gaiu, who were following behind, were horrified. They witnessed with their own eyes that the man waved his hand casually, and the power he condensed was too terrifying. It was undeniable. Every time the two met Jun Changxiao, they showed stronger strength than before. Jiangzi looked at the faces of the two elders of Myoho Palace, because each of them had a thin red mark, exactly the same as the one on Wei Leo's face, which should have been sucked by a vacuum cleaner. Brother, you have it on your face too. Master, Jiangzi asked, what should we do with these senior leaders and disciples? All the spirit cores and meridians are destroyed. Although Master Jun likes to destroy the family at any time, he has always targeted the culprit. This kind of disciples can be destroyed if possible, instead of being cruelly killed. Although it is a different world, but it is necessary to promote positive energy. Okay. Jiangzi started to act. This guy had done things in the evil sect and abolished martial arts and spirit cores without any ambiguity. In just a moment, the high-level officials and disciples in the Nine Poison Palace were lying on the ground weakly. The high-level ones had their spirit cores abolished, and the low-level ones had their meridians abolished. If you want to practice martial arts again in this life, unless you encounter a heaven-defying treasure, there is no hope in this life. It's gone. Cultivation is gone. The disciples of the Nine Poison Palace collapsed on the ground with no hope of living. Although they mainly practice poison, they also rely on martial arts in many poison techniques. Now that martial arts have been abolished, it is equivalent to abolishing 80% of the means of using poison. Master, Jiangzi said, how to deal with this woman? Jun Changxiao first looked at Miao Seifeng who had fainted, and then looked at Wei Liao who was still in a daze, shook his head and said, "Take her back to the Eternal Sect." When he entered the Nine Poison Palace, he heard the conversation between the two. Knowing that the master of the Nine Poison Palace was the daughter of Wei Liao's ex-girlfriend, he didn't do things too radically. The death penalty can be avoided, but the living crime cannot be escaped. You will spend the rest of your life in the dungeon of the Eternal Sect. Xiao Dadao must be ecstatic if he knows this. The cellmates have been replaced wave after wave, and finally it is no longer a terrible demon king, a half saint, or a martial saint, but a beautiful beauty. Sect master. Wei Liao stood up with difficulty and said, "Thank you." He knew that the reason why the sect master did not kill Miao Seifeng was because of himself. Who? Jun Changxiao and others walked out of the 10,000 poison forest. Not long after they left, the hot flame spread and eventually burned this area full of various poisons to ashes. So far, the Nine Poison Palace no longer exists. Those disciples who were not wiped out, even if they wanted to rebuild the sect in the future, the 10,000 poison forest would also be reduced to ashes. Without the ideal poison area, they were destined to completely lose hope. Cough, cough. On the way, Zijingsun, who was held by Jun Changxiao, moved her eyelashes slightly and slowly opened her eyes. Her head seemed to explode, and her memory was very confused. Finally, she sorted it out, and remembered that she was thrown into the poison abyss by Tan Huaying. Wait. Zijingsun's body suddenly trembled. In the originally dark vision, a light spot suddenly appeared, then turned into a line, slowly expanding to the surroundings, until the vision was completely occupied by the shining light. Because she was not used to it, she subconsciously closed her eyes again. Palace Master Z. A voice came from her ear. "Are you okay? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 836. It turns out that this world is so colorful. Hearing the voice ringing in her ears, Zijingsun immediately realized that it was Master Jun. Why is he here? Isn't she in the poison abyss, where she will surely die? The face that existed in the sea of consciousness, as if it could never be erased, emerged. Although it was different from what Zijingsun imagined, she gradually got used to it, after having more memories. If Master Jun knew what Zijingsun was thinking, he would definitely squat in the corner and bury his head between his legs. She actually accepted me, a handsome guy who can only be compared to a woman dressed as a man, in a way that she slowly got used to. Gradually adapting to the light, Zijingsun opened her eyes again. Although her vision was still blurry, she could vaguely see the outline of a face, and merged it with her memory, confirming that it was Jun Changxiao. Zijingsun subconsciously raised her hand, and touched the blurry face in her vision. She felt the temperature in her palm, and said in a trembling voice, I saw it, I saw it. See it? Jun Changxiao was stunned. Suddenly, he found that Zijingsun's originally empty eyes gradually had color and some kind of emotion. So he said in surprise, Palace Master Z, your eye disease is cured. What? Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu looked dazed. I saw it. I really saw it. Zijingsun was still shouting, maybe too happy. Her eyes gradually moistened, flowing down her cheeks. After 20 years of darkness, she can now see the light again. Although the picture is blurry and similar to severe myopia, it is at least not so scary anymore. How can she not be ecstatic and cry with joy? What is this? Apple. What is this? Orange? On the boulder, Jun Changxiao sat cross-legged, took another fruit from the side, and asked, what about this? Zijingsun squinted her eyes and leaned over. After taking a closer look, she smiled and said, it's still an apple. Crack. Jun Changxiao took a bite, chewing and laughing. Sure enough, under my treatment, Palace Master Z finally saw the light again. System. What the hell are you treating? Why Zijingsun can see the light again? This is a question. At first, Jun Changxiao guessed that he might have cured his eye disease by using poison to fight poison, but then he wondered if he had taken away the strange aura, so that not only did he recover, but his eyes also recovered. Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu burst into tears. Not only did the tattoo on the palace master's face disappear, but her eye disease was also cured. This was definitely a blessing in disguise. Of course. At this moment, they also believed that the palace master's escape from danger and regaining sight must have something to do with Jun Changxiao, so they were grateful in their hearts. But, although I can see, there are still some problems with my vision. Not just a little, it's severe myopia. Even if you put something in front of your eyes, you can only see it blurry. Master Jun. Zijingsun smiled brightly. I'm very satisfied. For more than 20 years, it was dark when I opened my eyes and closed them. No one could understand the loneliness and fear. Now that I can see the light again, even if I can't see things clearly, I'm satisfied. Especially, I can always see this man's face clearly, and I don't have to think about it from memory anymore. Actually, it's not a big problem. Jun Changxiao threw away the unfinished apple and said, as long as you wear a pair of glasses, the problem can be solved. Glasses? Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu looked at each other. There are definitely no myopic glasses in Xingyan continent, but there are in the mall, because I bought glare sunglasses before. Jun Changxiao didn't rush to leave, but rested on the spot and opened the beginner mall. Since Palace Master Z's eye disease has recovered, I will be a good person to the end and help her brush out a pair of glasses to see the world more clearly. The system said, there is love. Zijingsun sat on the grass, happily moving the flowers next to her, and murmured, it turns out that this world is so colorful, and it turns out that flowers look like this, not square and square. She has been blind since childhood, so she can only learn about the world from others, and then rely on herself to imagine, but the things she imagines may not correspond to reality. For example, Jun Changxiao. In Zijingsun's rich imagination, her head is very flat, her nose is very long, and her eyes are very long. When she sees that her appearance is different from her imagination, she is immediately frustrated. You can't blame Jun Gaosheng for not being handsome enough and not being popular among thousands of girls. Zijingsun's eye disease makes her look at the world and things differently from normal people. As she gradually adapts to this world, she can tell what people should look like and establish her aesthetic standards. When she looks at Jun Zhongzhu again, well, she is used to vomiting anyway, and it doesn't matter anymore. Ding. Ding. Jun Changxiao is still refreshing the primary mall, and his contribution value is decreasing by 10 points. With tens of thousands of points, he doesn't feel distressed at all. Finally, after spending thousands of contribution points, a pair of multifunctional glasses called Shenkei appeared. The introduction said, no matter how many degrees of myopia one has, wearing them will give the patient normal vision. The special effect is that it can be turned on once a day to massage and correct the eyes. In the long run, the patient can completely get rid of myopia and restore normal vision. Author, I want T_T. That's it. Jun Changxiao spent 50 contribution points to buy this retro large round frame multifunctional glasses, and then murmured, it's quite suitable for little girls. In his previous world, glasses were sometimes more like decorations. Different types of girls will look more elegant and charming when wearing different styles. For example, working women will look very capable with black framed glasses, and girls next door will look very cute with large round frame glasses. Zijingsun belongs to the latter, the kind of weak girl next door. Palace Master Z. Jun Changxiao came over and said, try putting them on. How do I put them on? Forget it, I'll help you. Jun Changxiao gently put the glasses on Zijingsun, and the latter's vision suddenly became extremely clear. The whole person stood there like a wooden chicken. Just the blurred vision was enough to satisfy her. Now that the picture has become extremely clear, the excitement is self-evident. It's so clear. I can see very far. At that moment, Zijingsun stood up happily like a child, looking at the green mountains and green waters in the distance, and the endless sky. Against the backdrop of the retro large round frame glasses, she looked even more lovely. My name is Jun Changxiao. I never thought that this way would help a girl with eye disease see the light again. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task, helping others, and obtaining 10,000 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value 54,333/50,000 point. Ding. Contribution value overflow. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task, triggering the hidden reward, obtaining 1 top grade formation qualification liquid, and obtaining the right to purchase a plain battlefield portal 1. Jun Changxiao was stunned. Zhijingxian put on her glasses to see everything clearly, and she actually completed a hidden task, which was completely unexpected. The next second, Jun Gaosheng grinned. Although helping the girl took some time and consumed some contribution points, the reward of 10,000 contribution points was still very profitable. Moreover, top grade formation qualification liquid is a good thing. After taking it, your understanding of the formation will definitely be taken to a higher level. What does the plain battlefield portal mean? Jun Changxiao opened the purchased item column and clicked on the product that appeared, showing the introduction as Chapter 837. You can't afford to suffer a loss. You can't afford to be fooled. Helping Zhijingxian regain her sight and see the colorful world clearly is a happy thing to do, so Jun Changxiao completed the hidden task. In fact, he never claimed to be a good person, but he must have done good things. Why did he complete it at this time? The system explained. Some hidden tasks are not available at the beginning, but added after the system is constantly upgraded. I believe your lies. Jun Changxiao muttered, and then clicked on the product introduction. The system crashed and said, shouldn't we care about the girl who just regained her sight at this time? Item. Plain battlefield portal. Introduction. The creatures of each plane are constantly multiplying, overcrowded, and overwhelmed, so the plain battlefield is opened up, and the practitioners of each plane enter and fight in it, thereby relieving the pressure of survival. Function. This item can lead to the battlefield outside the domain, to fight with various races. It is indeed the best place for training. Advantages. The battlefield hides caves, martial arts secrets and resources. Disadvantages. Life and death are determined by fate, and wealth is determined by heaven. Price. 50,000 contribution points. Countdown. 59 minutes and 10 seconds. After seeing the price, Jun Changxiao stared and said, 50,000 points? This is too expensive. His current upper limit is only 50,000. Buying this thing is equivalent to directly clearing the contribution value. What does the purchase countdown mean? This item is a limited time item. The host must purchase it within the specified time, otherwise it will be permanently erased from the purchased items column and cannot be refreshed from the mall in the future. Is there such an operation? Jun Changxiao was stunned. The system said, it's expensive for a reason. It is recommended that the host buy 5. Before he finished speaking, he was forcibly interrupted by Jun Changxiao and said, I won't buy it, even if the recommended index is 500,000 stars. 50,000 contribution points are too much. Moreover, the plain battlefield is to fight in it. Although there are various resources in it, life and death are determined by fate, and wealth is determined by heaven. This shows that the so-called plain battlefield must be full of dangers, and it is definitely not a child's play. What's more, as long as he builds the sect into a strong one, he can complete the main task and live with the disciples without shame. What's the point of going to the plain battlefield? Every item in the mall is useful, such as hairspray, facial mask, and vacuum cleaner. This item is a limited time item, so it must be more useful. The host will definitely not suffer a loss or be fooled. Besides, I will help the host to keep the contribution points given by the disciple for entering the secret realm of life and death. Even if the current contribution points are cleared, there will be more. The system is a qualified salesman. But Jun Changxiao just can't be tempted, just sticking to the principles. There is no way. The system opened its mind and said, since the battlefield outside the domain is used by all planes to fight, there must be a passage back. If the host buys it, doesn't it mean that he can use the battlefield as a transit and go to other planes to rob? That makes sense. Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. The system said again, the Soul Clan continent is also a plane. If the host breaks the seal and goes in, it may allow others to invade first. Using the portal to transit to their world is both safe and convenient. After following Jun Changxiao for a long time, its imagination has also improved a lot. Don't say it. After saying that, Jun Gaosheng's heart was pounding. So he touched his chin and said to himself, why not just buy it? He was not interested in fighting in the plane battlefield. If he could really use this place to reach other planes, then it would definitely be worth buying. The main task was to make the sect the strongest, and the factor of becoming stronger was resources. If the Starfall continent could not satisfy him later, going to other places, such as the Soul Clan's territory, to plunder was the fastest way to improve. Buy. The system merged, opportunities are rare, and can never come back. If there was no time limit, Jun Changxiao might have to think about it for a long time, but seeing the seconds decreasing, he finally made up his mind and said, I trust you again. Ding. The host consumes 50,000 contribution points and obtains one plane battlefield portal, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Contribution value 4,333/50,000 point. In the past, when he spent thousands or tens of thousands of points, Jun Changxiao would feel very painful. Now that he saw that more than 50,000 contribution points suddenly became thousands of points, he covered his chest and said, it's uncomfortable Leafy. The plane battlefield portal is similar to the life and death secret realm, similar to the vortex form. Because he was in the wild, he did not take it out to look at it carefully. Palace Master Z. Jun Changxiao said, let's hurry on. Zijingxian was very happy to completely restore her vision after wearing glasses. Walking on the road, she was like a child walking out of the mountains, examining the strange world with various curious attitudes. Of course, she also met many warriors sporadically. After gradually establishing her aesthetic values, she occasionally secretly looked at Jun Changxiao and said to herself, she is more pleasing to the eye than others. It was definitely because she had seen too much. It was not the kind of first meeting, and she was shocked by her beauty. At this time, as a love expert, he would definitely find an opportunity to talk and brush up his favorability in front of the girl. However, Jun Changxiao's spiritual thoughts were integrated into the space ring and the vacuum cleaner, and he was spying on the restless and weird properties inside. This unclean thing should be the culprit that caused Zhigangsu to run away and even blinded him, right? At first, the system said it was the Soul Clan, until it was put into the vacuum cleaner. Jun Changxiao denied it, because the Formation Emperor said that the energy released by the Soul Clan was green, which was obviously not the case. What's more, although the blackened Zijingxian's strength has greatly increased, she has not absorbed the energy of others, so it is also one of the factors that exclude her from being a Soul Clan. Hey. Sect Master Jun rubbed his temple and said self-deprecatingly, the Soul Clan can trigger the war between the emperors in ancient times, which means they are good at hiding. How can I find them so easily? The system said, for now, let's focus on those withered flowers and plants. As long as we find out who did it, we may be able to find the Soul Clan. Yeah. Jun Changxiao also thought so. The withered areas in Dong Hao's Hao that have absorbed energy are the only remaining clues. As for whether he can find the answer he wants, he has no idea. Sect Master Jun. After walking for a while, they confirmed that the Palace Master's eyes had completely recovered. Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu took the opportunity to kneel down and saluted while taking a break, saying, thank you so much. They used to hate Jun Changxiao. After experiencing the incident in the Nine Poison Palace, especially seeing Jun Changxiao resolutely jump into the poison abyss to rescue the Palace Master, their attitudes changed drastically, even regretted the sarcasm towards him. If Sect Master Jun gave Zijingxian a wall down and then hooked her chin with his finger and said domineeringly, be my woman, the two elders would definitely not object, because a man who sacrificed himself to save someone in times of crisis is worthy of entrusting one's life to. However, just if. The reality is that Sect Master Jun waved his hand, and a strong spiritual energy burst out, stopping the two from kneeling, saying, this seat and Palace Master Z are friends. When a friend is in trouble, it is natural to help him. You two don't need to thank me. Chapter 838, Alliance with Maihua Palace. Although Jingxian had recovered her vision, Jun Changxiao kept telling her some tragic stories on the way to further prove that she would not go berserk. After listening to each story, Palace Master Z would always frown and look depressed, but she was always normal and did not go berserk. So far, Jun Changxiao temporarily concluded that the energy sucked away was the culprit for her split personality. So he decided it is impossible to release it, so just keep it locked up for now. The barrier inside the vacuum cleaner is very strong, and dirty things cannot rush out. It is still capable of being locked up for a long time. Jun Changxiao even considered whether to prepare more. Master Jun, Jingxian said, are there any more stories? Yes. Jun Changxiao sat down cross-legged, took a bite of the apple, and said, yesterday I told you about Romeo and Juliet, and today I will tell you about Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai. System. Okay. Jingxian stared with big eyes, her face full of expectation. The story goes like this. Later, Liang Shanbo died, and Zhu Yingtai knelt in front of the tomb and cried. Suddenly, she found Liang Shanbo's figure, so they both turned into butterflies and flew away. After listening to this, Jingxian was already in tears. She took off her glasses and wiped her tears, choking and saying, why can't lovers finally get married? Ah. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, ask what love is in the world. It makes people promise to live and die. Palace Master Z. After a pause, he said, tomorrow I will tell you the story of the cowherd and the weaver girl. The system couldn't help but complain. I think it's best for the host to sing songs like happy breakup, good-hearted breakup, no big deal about breakup. Autumn is the season for breakup at this time. Get lost. I can't sing. On the way, whenever he encountered a beautiful place, Jun Changxiao would deliberately stop and let Jingxian appreciate it. The others left very tactfully, giving the two a chance to be alone. This is a waterfall. Jingxian looked at the water that seemed to be falling from the Milky Way, and her smile became even brighter. In just a few days, she had adapted to the colorful world, and her mood was getting better and better. Of course, Jingxian also knew that she could see the light of day again because of Jun Changxiao, so every time she looked over, her cheeks would always turn red unconsciously. Jun Changxiao didn't think anything of it. Whenever he had time, he would study the strange energy in the vacuum cleaner. It can instantly increase a person's strength by several times or even higher. If you study it thoroughly without losing your rationality, it would be perfect. It's a pity that there was no gain from the research all the way. The next day, they reached the fork in the road. Palace Master Z. Jun Changxiao stopped and bowed, saying, let's say goodbye here, be careful on the road. Okay. Jingxian nodded, but when she was about to leave, she turned around and said, thank you, Sect Master Jun, for your help. I will always remember this kindness in my heart. Jun Changxiao said, we are friends. Since we are friends, why can't we become allies? Jingxian said with a smile. She had mentioned this idea when Kangshan Sect and Wangu Sect formed an alliance, but it was later rejected by the elders, who thought Jun Changxiao was too troublesome. Now, Sun Fanghe and Leng Xinggai were very supportive. Sect Master Jun said, okay. It is very normal for a sect to have many allies, and he naturally would not dislike them. I will announce it to the public after I go back. Jingxian said. Yes. That's it. The serious alliance was not completed at the solemn negotiation table, but was solved in the wilderness by the two sect masters with a casual word. The efficiency is amazing. Goodbye. Goodbye. Jingxian reluctantly took the two elders back to Maihua Palace, and Jun Changxiao led everyone back to Wangu Sect. Old Wendy. On the way, Jiangzi whispered, Elder Leng is gone, and you didn't say a word. Ah. Old Wendy sighed. Since returning from the 10,000 poison forest, he has been silent all the time, obviously unable to accept the death of the girl he once loved deeply. Looking at the slightly haggard Wendy Lao, Jun Changxiao secretly said, so it's better to focus on developing the sect, so as not to be trapped and hurt by love in the future. The system complained, it sounds like you can find a woman. Wangu Sect. After Jun Changxiao came back, he tied up Miao Seifeng and put her in jail. Zhao Dao was really happy. He didn't expect that the new cellmate was a beautiful woman with a national beauty. However, he cried that night, because although the woman was tied up and her meridians were sealed, there were many terrible spiders, centipedes and other poisonous creatures in the cell. He grabbed the iron window and shouted sadly, "Master Jun, change my cell, master." Jiangzi said, "Has that woman been locked up all the time?" "Yes." Jun Changxiao said, "Lock her up first." Ding Xingwang suggested, "The art of poison is so profound that it is hard to defend against. Master can recruit her to surrender and use her for your own benefit." "Yes." The Ning brothers agreed. Jun Changxiao brought Miao Seifeng back and actually had this intention. But he knew that being tied up by himself could kill her at any time. Miao Seifeng didn't compromise, which meant that she was a woman with character. It might not be easy to make her surrender. In this case, then lock her up first. In order to prevent the number one prisoner from dying, Jun Changxiao took Miao Seifeng out and locked her up in a cell alone. Zhao Dadao let out a long sigh, holding his chest and said, "I would rather be with the Demon King than with a vicious woman." A few days later, Maihua Palace announced to the public that it had formed an alliance with the Wangu sect. In the past, some people would definitely think that Jun Changxiao had embraced a fourth-rate sect, but now they think it is an honor to be able to form an alliance with the Wangu sect. The alliance did not cause much waves, because many bigwigs were speculating that there was an unspeakable relationship between the leader of the Wangu sect and the leader of the Maihua Palace. Now that they have become allies, it is basically a stone hammer. In the future Maihua Palace cannot be provoked. Listen carefully, go down the mountain to experience. If you meet Maihua Palace disciples, be careful and don't provoke them. Many high-level officials of 4th and 5th-rate sects were admonishing their disciples. Obviously, the prestige of the Wangu sect has made many forces feel daunted. How is the intelligence network arranged? That day, Jun Changxiao came to Xiao Hall to inquire about the situation. Li Luoqiu took out a map of the Xinjiang continent and pointed to several states, saying, "At least 5 states have been deployed, and the southeast state is still accelerating its extension. It will be fully covered in about a month. Good progress. The money is in place. It is definitely unrealistic to rely solely on disciples to act as intelligence agents. Many intelligence members are obtained by recruiting independent cultivators. Simply put, the intelligence system of Xiao Hall covers several large states. Disciples only account for a small number, and most of them are collected by independent cultivators and receive corresponding rewards. If they perform well during the period, they will be recommended by the leader of the branch to become a member of the Wangu sect. The Wangu sect now has 2 channels for recruiting disciples. One is to open the mountain gate for assessment and obtain high quality teenagers, and the other is to send them from the branch. A virtuous cycle has been formed in recruitment and has been fully operational, so Master Jun does not need to consider how to recruit disciples now. In terms of elixir resources, Li Qingyang is fully responsible. Whatever is needed, he will refine it, which is absolutely very stable, comfortable. Lying on the chair in the study, Jun Changxiao closed his eyes and took a nap. Although he was still needed for many things, the sect gradually became regularized and operated in a healthy manner, and he had fewer and fewer things to worry about. A hands-off shopkeeper. It's really just around the corner. By the way, Jun Changxiao opened his eyes and said, "Place the portal to the plain battlefield first." Chapter 839, Battlefield. Jun Changxiao came to the back mountain and installed the plain battlefield portal. At this point, there is another vortex-shaped entrance, which is in a 3-legged tripod with the life and death secret realm and the time and space secret realm. The back mountain is a place with all kinds of facilities. There is a spirit gathering array for faster spiritual energy absorption, a training tower for the comprehensive development of morality, intelligence, physical fitness and beauty, as well as time acceleration and life and death training secret realms. Now there is an additional plain battlefield portal. Master, Li Qingyang came over and said, "What is this?" He had just returned from the training tower, and there were beads of sweat on his forehead. Jun Changxiao thought silently and said, "Let's call it a battlefield secret realm. Can it improve martial arts?" Li Qingyang's eyes lit up. As long as a new secret realm appears, it will definitely be of great help to cultivation. It is used for training, and you can get a lot of resources. Can the disciple go in? No. Jun Changxiao refused. The plain battlefield is different from the life and death secret realm. You can be resurrected after death, so it must be personally verified, and the danger factor inside must be determined before the disciple is allowed to enter. Okay. Li Qingyang said, disciple will go and do his work first. Go. After he left, Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, do you want to go in and take a look? The system said, since you bought it, you must go and take a look. There are many plain masters in the plain battlefield. What if you can't beat them? Although Jun Changxiao likes to die in fancy ways, everything is based on having a trump card, but he has no idea what the plain battlefield is, so he is unsure. Hesitation is not the host's character. The system said, besides, there are all kinds of equipment in the sword that is difficult to put away, so why fear a fight? You hope that I will be frustrated in the plain battlefield, so that it will stimulate consumption. The one who knows me is the host. Fuck. Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, when did you become so shameless? I learned it from the host. After some serious thinking, Jun Changxiao finally walked towards the plain battlefield portal. He got a set of equipment from the Demon Valley. His strength is a peak sword and martial arts double emperor, and he also has the sword that is difficult to put away, and the mechanical armed wing. He is really not afraid of getting into trouble. The most important thing is to know whether the things bought with 50,000 contribution points are a loss or a profit. Ding. Just after entering the vortex, a voice sounded in my ears. After testing, the entrance level has reached the Emperor level, meeting the minimum entry conditions. The transmission device is being activated. Loading 10%. Loading 20%. Oh my. There are realm restrictions for entering the plain battlefield, and the minimum is the Emperor level. This shows that all the masters in the battlefield are emperors, or even higher. Loading 30%. No. Wait until you complete the epic task and break through the semi-saint before entering. Jun Gao is left with nothing. Load 100%. Teleport. Just when he was about to exit, he disappeared out of thin air with a whoosh, and a roar came. 30% directly jumps to loading 100%. Playing. Making trouble. Zhang Zhao. In the ancient altar, several white-robed old men sat cross-legged in front of the Earth Spirit instrument. But suddenly, the Earth Spirit instrument trembled slightly, and a voice came. According to the decision of the Upper Realm, the Starfall continent needs to send warriors to fight in the plain battlefield 5 years later. What? The leading old man suddenly opened his eyes and said in horror, my lord, the Upper Realm has decided. You just need to obey. Yes. Swish. The fluctuation of the Earth Spirit instrument stopped, and everything returned to normal. The 5 white-robed old men frowned, and their eyes were full of tragic grandeur. The leader said painfully, after all, we can't hide. Our Starfall continent is just the most inconspicuous plane in the universe. Why was it selected as a plane participant? If it was in ancient times, we might have the ability to participate in the war, but now the spiritual energy is withering, and the strength is not as good as before. Sending strong people in is undoubtedly tantamount to sending them to death. Several white-robed old men were very unhappy, but they could only complain, because they had to obey the orders of the Upper Realm. The old man in the lead shook his head and said, tell the mainland about this, and let the Emperor-level strongmen actively prepare for war in the next 5 years. Yes. After everyone withdrew, the leader sighed with his hands behind his back. The minimum requirement for entering the plain battlefield is to send 2,000 martial emperors. Although my Zingan continent has them, if all of them die in it, it will definitely bring a heavy price, and the overall strength will only get worse and worse. The warriors on the mainland did not know about the plain battlefield. As the leader of the relevant department, he knew better than anyone that, although there were various resources and opportunities there, it was also hell. Alas. He sighed and said, I can only leave it to fate. Jun Changxiao felt dizzy and swollen, until he gradually recovered, and found himself on a red land. Here. He looked up at the starry sky and said, is it the plain battlefield? At that moment, he felt as if he was in outer space, and could see stars and nebulae in the distance. Hoo-hoo. Suddenly, a stream of murderous air filled the air, making Jun Changxiao shudder. He had felt this kind of aura before. However, He had never seen it so strong. So he instantly determined that many people must have died in the area where he was, otherwise it would be impossible to form such a creepy aura. Congratulations to the entrants for coming to the plain battlefield. Because the Starfall continent has never participated in the plain battlefield, you are now in the location circle, which is automatically planned as the Starfall continent's territory. A feminine prompt came from his ears. Fuck. Jun Chang laughed. It's changed. The system said, the voice is not a prompt from the Strongest Sect system, but from the plain battlefield portal itself. I see. Jun Chang laughed. It's quite high tech. Inside the circle? Territory? He hurriedly lowered his head and found himself in a circle with a radius of about 2 or 3 meters. There was a portal to go back next to it and a flag with the word Starfall continent written on it. No way. Sect Master Jun collapsed and said, this territory is too small. A feminine reminder sounded. This is the first time that the plane you represent has entered the battlefield. It is normal that the territory is small. If you want to expand it, you need to fight in it. Every time you defeat or kill an enemy, it will expand by 1 meter. 1 meter. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. How many people do you have to defeat to reach the scale of a village or town? A sweet feminine voice sounded in his ears. The value of the territory lies in that the strong men from other planes cannot occupy it. So dear participants, if you want to provide a safer and larger territory for the warriors of the Falling Star continent who will enter in the future, please fight as much as you want. Muah. Muah. Jun Changxiao stepped out of the safe zone. A reminder came from his ear. Participants will lose any protection if they leave the territory. Please pay attention to safety and don't die. Jun Changxiao swore. If this feminine system had a physical body, no matter how beautiful it was, it would definitely be punched. Chapter 840 Prey. There are many planes in the plane battlefield, and each plane has its own independent territory. If you want to expand, you must keep killing. Jun Changxiao, who came up through the portal, successfully activated the Xingqiu continent territory, but it was only a few meters away. In fact, it is related to the number of people. If more people come in, the initial territory will be larger. Hey, Jun Changxiao said, since you are here, make the best of it. I didn't come here to fight, and I didn't care about the territory. As long as I could go to other planes smoothly, it would be enough. No. Suddenly, Jun Changxiao thought of something and collapsed. Others can't enter the Xingqiu continent territory, and they certainly can't enter the territories of other planes. How can I go to their world? From the battlefield setting, each plane territory is a safe zone. There is no hope of sneaking into other people's territory and going to other people's world. System, get out. No echo. Obviously, it has entered the state of pretending to be dead. Damn. Jun Changxiao held his head and collapsed, saying, I feel like I've lost a lot. Suddenly, a deep voice came from the sky. The warriors of Xingqiu continent have entered the plane battlefield and become one of the participants. This is hereby announced. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. He said it so loudly, afraid that others would not know that someone from Xingqiu continent has come. Hoo-hoo. At this moment, a strong breath burst out, and thousands of streamers flew at high speed in the sky full of stars in the distance. Among them were humans wearing strange clothes and orcs with half of their bodies exposed. Jun Changxiao's eyes widened immediately, because all the warriors who came were at the level of martial emperors. No. The dozens of warriors flying in the front, judging from the strong breath they exuded, were definitely semi-saints. When he came, he heard the limit of the realm he entered, and Jun Changxiao guessed that there must be many masters here, but when he saw that there were so many emperors and semi-saints running all over the street, he took a breath and said, the plain battlefield is so terrifying. Wait. Jun Chang's smiling face suddenly became interesting, because thousands of strong men were obviously coming for him. New warrior from the Falling Star continent, prepare to die. This guy is mine. No one can compete with me for him. If you take down a warrior from the Falling Star continent, you will be rewarded with several times the merit points. Whoever lets you do that is a grandson. Hoo-hoo. The murderer Sora burst out and swept across the land. With this lineup and this formation, even a martial saint like City Lord Han would not be able to withstand it. However, Jiang Gaosheng was smarter. Seeing thousands of people coming aggressively, he hurriedly stepped back a few steps and shrank into a circle of only a few meters. Swish, swish. Many strong men came in the blink of an eye, hanging in the air, and said provocatively, "New kid, get out quickly." Seeing that they didn't dare to step out of the circle, Jun Changxiao folded his hands and said lightly, "Come in if you dare. Come out if you dare. Come in if you dare. Have the courage." 10 minutes later, Jun Changxiao's mouth was dry and his voice was hoarse. Have the courage to come in. If there were only a few, or dozens of emperors, he would definitely dare to go out, but there were thousands of people surrounding him, and he could only rely on the safe zone to fight with the other side. "You are a coward," a plain strongman said coldly. "I won't waste time with you. Go." Swish, swish. The strong man representing his group turned around and flew away. The other plain strongmen also dispersed one after another. Soon, there were only 20 to 30 people left outside the safe zone of Xingyu continent. Obviously, they didn't want to give up and planned to wait. Swish. Jun Changxiao summoned a chair, sat on it casually, crossed his legs and said, "I don't believe I can't drive you away." The system said, "Don't be scared. Go for it. Go for it." Jun Changxiao said, "Do you think those people really left? Dear participant, because you illegally entered the plain battlefield and did not follow the normal procedures, although you have established the Starfall continent, you will be expelled from the safe zone after 1 hour. Now the countdown begins." Of course. The feminine reminder continued, if the participant continues to be in the outside world for half an hour, the countdown will be restarted when he enters the safe zone again. I wish you good luck and a happy life. Muah. Damn it. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Stay inside for an hour and hang out outside for half an hour. This is forcing himself not to stay in the safe zone. He must either take the initiative to fight or be hunted down. Don't be scared. The system said, "Fuck him." Okay. Jun Changxiao stood up, shook his shoulders and said, "When the time is almost up, I will fight them." The system crashed. I have to go out at the right time. When did the host become so cowardly? It's not cowardly. It's rich express delivery. Eating chicken. I'm talking to you all. Jun Changxiao sat on the chair as steady as an old man and said, "Which plane are you from?" "Lingayan continent." "Chihei continent." "Shangxian continent." The strong men who did not disperse introduced themselves one after another, and their noses were almost poking the sky. Jun Changxiao said, "What do you mean by the merit value you just mentioned?" "Hey." The strong man from Lingayan continent smiled coldly and said, "Since you have come to the plain battlefield, don't you know the merit value?" "This." Jun Changxiao said, "I came in a hurry and don't know a lot of things." The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. They went through a long period of consideration before finally making up their minds to come to the plain battlefield. There was no such thing as haste. Boy. A powerful man from the Red Sea continent said indifferently, "When your territory expands to a certain scale, the upper realm will condense a merit store, and then you can buy natural treasures and weapons and equipment that are not available in the plain." Upper realm? Jun Changxiao was surprised. A feminine reminder came, "Dear participants, this place was opened up by the great powers of the upper realm. Every 5 years, a plane will withdraw, and a new plane will join." Damn. Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, "Establishing a battlefield dominated by killing the people in the upper realm are bad enough." A feminine reminder sounded, "The tribes in the major planes reproduce too fast. If this continues, the energy will be exhausted, so it is necessary to establish a plain battlefield. More and more people consume more resources, and they will definitely be exhausted in the end." Jun Changxiao can understand this. But using fighting to reduce the population is really a bit extreme, or it can be said that the upper realm is simply treating the lower realm as an ant, and it doesn't matter how many die. I thought the upper realm was a kind of extraordinary holy place, but now it seems that it can't escape the law of the jungle. Jun Changxiao shook his head. Of course. The strong man from the Red Sea continent smiled coldly and said, "You have no chance to expand your territory, because as long as you step out, you will become our prey for merit points." "Prey?" Jun Changxiao clasped his fingers together, leaned forward slightly, rested his chin on them, slowly narrowed his eyes, and a U-shaped smile appeared. "Are you serious?" Chapter 841 The Killing Begins. Treat yourself as prey? Sect Master Jun narrowed his eyes, and a devilish smile emerged that would scare children to tears. Seeing his expression, the strong men from all planes said disdainfully, "This guy deserves a beating." Yes, Jun Changxiao deserves a beating. But no one dared to beat him in the Starfall continent. The strong men in the plain battlefield were different, and no one took Jun Changxiao seriously. Boy. The strong man from the Red Sea continent folded his hands and said, "Don't hide in the safe zone. Come out and fight me for 300 rounds. 300 rounds? Jun Changxiao leaned back in an apology style tactic, then leaned back on the chair, raised a finger, and said lightly, "1 round is enough to deal with trash like you. 1 round. The strong man from the Red Sea continent sneered. This little martial artist from the Starfall continent is quite arrogant. Be patient, be patient. Jun Changxiao said, "You'll know in a while." He was always counting the time, waiting for an hour to end. Once he went out this time, he had to spend half an hour outside, and the safer he could be, the better. In fact, Jun Changxiao can integrate into the portal and return to the Eternal Sect. But since he is here, and there are so many strong people here, he naturally has to fight well. This guy is also a warmonger. He is just managing the sect in the Star Meteoric continent. Except for encountering difficult enemies, all the fights are done by disciples. Today, in the battlefield dominated by killing, he can finally do it himself. Boy. The strong man from the Red Sea continent shouted, "Get out and finish me in 1 round." He was very anxious. He wanted to take the first blood of the warriors from the Star Meteoric continent, earn several times the merit points, and go to the merit shop to exchange for the required resources. Jun Changxiao ignored it and secretly observed the 20 warriors outside the safe zone. 10 are comparable to the 8th grade Martial Emperor, 6 are comparable to the 9th grade Martial Emperor, 3 are comparable to the peak Martial Emperor, and 1 is comparable to the Half Saint. Why use comparable to describe it? Because each plane has a different cultivation system and different realms. The Star Meteoric continent is a martial artist, a Martial Emperor, etc. Other planes may be Kihei realm and Huaxu realm. The most sturdy and simplest is the realm division from 1 to 999. The powerful warriors of the Red Sea continent who were shouting were represented by numbers, and they were more than 700 levels. The realms of each plane are different, but they are almost the same. There is only one half saint. Jun Changxiao said secretly, "It's not a big problem." Clang. The Jade Dragon questioning heaven sword emerged and inserted in front of the seat and said, "I advise you to leave quickly, otherwise you will become a soul under the sword, with legs apart and hands on the hilt." At that moment, Master Jun looked like a king who was about to conquer the 8 wastelands. However, the powerful warriors of the various planes did not care, staring at the Jade Dragon questioning heaven sword with shining eyes. Obviously, they were interested in it and planned to take it for themselves. In the plain battlefield, where life and death are determined by fate and wealth is determined by heaven, there is only one rule: either you die or I die, and the dead warriors' equipment and resources will naturally become the winners. Seeing that they were all looking at their swords, Jun Changxiao knew that he would not leave. Whatever. He shook his head and said, "Wait for death." TSK. Everyone disdained to care. They were all veterans who had been in the plain battlefield for a long time, so naturally they would not take this guy to heart. However, there was one thing that was puzzling. It would take another 5 years for the new plane to enter the plain battlefield. How did the warriors from the Starfall continent come in early and alone? Alas, the arrangement of the upper world was unpredictable. At this moment, the upper world expressed helplessness because this guy was smuggled in and was not within the rules at all. Time passed by minute. The 20 warriors gathered outside the safety of the Starfall continent and had no intention of leaving. The female system prompt sounded, "Dear participant, you will be expelled in 1 minute. Please be prepared to be forcibly sent out." Muah. Jun Changxiao always thought that it was annoying to complain about his system, but compared with this feminine system, it was simply one in heaven and one on earth. Without comparison, there is no harm. The system said, "Now you know how good I am." Swish. Jun Changxiao stood up, with a stream of light flashing behind him, and mechanical armed wings emerged. He held the Jade Dragon Questioning Heaven sword in one hand and said grimly, "The killing begins." Whoosh. The flames erupted, and the momentum was like a rainbow. Huh. The strong man from the Red Sea continent was surprised. He is still a fire-type martial artist. Swish. At this moment, Jun Changxiao burst out, and a cold sword light suddenly flashed in the raging flames. Not good. The strong man from the Red Sea continent looked horrified. He wanted to dodge, but the thought only arose in his mind, and he saw the sword light flash by his side, and the whole person suddenly stagnated in the air. Jun Changxiao came in front of him, looking down like a king. Trash like you can be solved with half a move. Strong, awesome, punchy. Blood spurted from the man's neck, and his head flew out immediately. From his wide eyes, it was obvious that he did not expect that he would be killed so easily by his prey. Plop. The body fell to the ground, splashing dust. Congratulations to the participants for taking the first blood of the Red Sea continent and obtaining 100 merit points. A feminine reminder came from my ear. Is this the first blood? Jun Changxiao's mouth corners slightly raised, and the big devil smile appeared again, and then he looked at the warriors of other planes, and said coldly, today you are all my prey. Everyone suddenly felt cold. More than 700 level strongmen of the Red Sea continent were killed by him with one sword. This guy is quite strong. Everyone. A strong man shouted coldly. Everyone come together. Hoo-hoo. Hoo-hoo-hoo. More than a dozen strongmen from different planes gathered different energies to kill. In an instant, this area exuded a stronger aura of killing, and the red earth became even more charming. Die. Jun Changxiao's black hair fluttered, his narrow eyes were filled with murderous intent, and he rushed forward fearlessly holding the Jade Dragon Questioning Heaven sword. Whoosh. Flames burst out, and sword energy was everywhere. At this time, borrowing the background music of Kyo gangs whose appearance will definitely make adrenaline burn instantly. Swish. Puff. The strong man from Lingayan continent didn't dodge at all, and his head was ruthlessly cut off, and a companion next to him was also killed. Congratulations to the participant for taking the first blood of Lingayan continent and obtaining 100 merit points. Congratulations to the participant for obtaining 10 merit points. It is not difficult to see from the prompt sound that killing the first person in a certain plane will give 100 points, and the second person will only give 10 points. Black sky and scorching sun. Tornado remnant cloud. Whoosh. On the other side, several plane strongmen displayed their martial arts, and dazzling energy came out wantonly. This is a plane battlefield. Even if the power burst is extremely strong, it only creates momentum and does not shake the space, otherwise it would have been torn into pieces long ago. Boom. Boom. Dozens of forces bombarded, causing a huge explosion. However, in the area where power was flying all over the sky, Jun Changxiao rushed out wearing a 9 phosphorus body armor, shocking everyone's eyes. This guy's defensive equipment is so strong. Everyone bombarded together, but it didn't hurt at all. Swish. Jun Changxiao flew over, waving his wrist, and the Lingjian divine art was immediately used. The sword light burst out like a rainstorm of pear blossoms. Not good. Get out of the way. The strong men of each plane were horrified. It's a pity that under the extremely fast sword moves, the locked warriors didn't even have a chance to turn around, and were instantly torn into pieces. Swish. Swish. The sky was full of flashing sword lights, illuminating the entire red earth. Hoo-hoo. Puff. Puff. Just a few minutes later, Jun Changxiao was suspended in the air holding the blood-stained Jade Dragon Questioning Heaven sword, like an undefeated god of war in mythology. On the red earth, 19 corpses and body parts were scattered around, and no one was alive. P.S. A new week, a new month. Please vote for me. Please vote for me. Broken voice. Chapter 842. It's exciting here. Perfect for me. In the cruel battlefield of the plane, it is either you die or I live. Therefore, Jun Changxiao has no mercy when he starts to fight. If he can kill with one move, he will never use the second move. In this way, in just a few minutes, all 19 plane masters died. It's a pity that there is no Lingayan continent to witness it, otherwise it will definitely be deeply shocked. After all, those who were killed by Jun Changxiao have a cultivation level comparable to that of an 8th grade martial emperor. If it were a large sect, the death of so many mainstays would definitely be a devastating blow, and it is even possible that they would never recover from it. Of course, if it were really in Xinjiang continent, Jun Changxiao might not have the opportunity to kill so many, because the emperor level masters there cherish their lives. What's more, with the current strength of the eternal ancient sect, unless it develops to the point of death with the enemy, it will never appear that dozens of emperor level masters will fight. The 19 people killed came from 3 planes, 300 points for the first blood, 16 points for 16 people, and a total of 460 merit points. Swish. Jun Changxiao waved his sword and looked at the plane powerhouse who was hanging in the sky, comparable to a half-step martial saint, and said lightly, "There is only one prey left." More than 10 powerhouses from several planes treated him as prey, but in the end they became the prey themselves. It was really a bit tragic. The semi-saint powerhouse said lightly, "No wonder you dare to enter the plane battlefield alone. It turns out that you have some ability. But," after a pause, he said with a cold look, "you still have to die." This powerhouse could have joined forces with others to take action early, but after witnessing the Red Sea continent warrior being killed, he decided to stand by and watch. Why? Because this Xinjiang continent warrior is very strong. If he kills many people in a row, he will slowly accumulate killing points. When the time comes, he will kill him himself and get more merit points. Jun Changxiao is very strong. This point was guessed by the semi-saint powerhouse. But he didn't expect that he would be so strong that he killed 19 people in a short time. But it doesn't matter. Now that the pig has been fattened, it's time to slaughter it. Bang, bang. This strong man who was comparable to a semi-saint waved his hands. The space shook, and fists gathered from top to bottom. Judging from the strength of the power he carried, it was by no means comparable to that of a semi-saint of ordinary level. Jun Changxiao held the sword tightly, and his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Since breaking through the peak emperor level, he has not seriously fought with a semi-saint. Now he is in a plain battlefield with a solid space barrier, and he can finally get what he wants. Burn. My chakra, my little universe, my domineering color, my Hello Kitty. The sword energy spans 30,000 miles, and the sword light chills the 19 continents. Jun Changxiao's long hair danced in the wind, and Yulan Wentian, who was covered by hot flames, suddenly slashed out, and instantly formed an unparalleled sword energy. In the distant battlefield area, the strong men of each plane saw the sky, and a dazzling light appeared, which was very eye-catching. Sword energy. Although the distance is very far, it feels very strong. Could it be that sword expert? Let's go and take a look. All the warriors rushed to the scene at the fastest speed. In their opinion, the sword energy that could burst out with such a dazzling sword energy must have been done by a sword expert. Bang, bang, bang. The sword energy that shone for thousands of miles, carrying the power of explosion, wiped out the fist marks one by one. Seeing the moves he was performing being broken by a sword, the calmness on the face of the semi-saint strongman was replaced by solemnity, and he secretly said, "This boy's as strong as me." Swish swish swish. Jun Changxiao rushed over with a sword, and the one-word quick formula was performed again, and the fighting spirit in his eyes was unprecedentedly strong. The semi-saint strongman looked at him, and his heart suddenly felt a little empty, so he hurriedly used his body skills to escape to the back. Once the master makes a move, you will know whether it is effective or not. Jun Changxiao's burst of sword energy has already made a semi-saint afraid. As the king of swords, with the Jade Dragon Heavenly Sword, his current combat power is definitely stronger than that of the King Lang Yanyu sword. Although he often plays with swords, he is the strongest in swordsmanship. Swish, swish, swish. Countless sword ki burst out like a whirlwind, but unfortunately, the semi-saint had no intention of fighting and retreated, so he did not hit him. Want to run? The mechanical armed wings and the power of flight burst out simultaneously, and Jun Changxiao turned into a stream of light, and chased after him, and caught up in the blink of an eye. What a fast speed! The semi-saint exclaimed. Die. Jun Changxiao shouted coldly, suddenly raised the Jade Dragon Heavenly Sword, and his wrist suddenly flashed with light, and was covered by pieces of steel. The mechanical armed wings, the combat form is activated. Whoosh, the explosive sword key slashed out, not only exuding an incomparably cold momentum, but also exuding a heavy power. At that moment, the whole world seemed to lose its color, leaving only the scorching sword light that the world will remember for a lifetime. No. Half-Saint was in danger, and he shouted in fear, but as soon as he opened his mouth, his whole body was split in two by the terrifying sword energy. Puff. The sword energy tore through, and the separated body spilled blood and fell to the ground with a bang, adding another red blood stain to the earth. Congratulations to the participant for taking the first blood of Fengyun continent and gaining 100 merit points. Congratulations to the participant for killing the Zuan character Strongman and gaining 20 merit points. Zuan character Strongman. A feminine reminder voice. The realm system of each plane is different, so in order to distinguish the strength, the participants are uniformly divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Zuan, and Huang in the plane battlefield. Dear participant, the strongman you just killed is a strongman in the Huaxu realm in Fengyun continent and is classified as Zuan character level in the plane battlefield. I see. Jun Chang smiled and said, what level am I? From the realm, you should be classified as Huang character level, so killing a higher level will give you 10 more merit points than killing the same level. A feminine voice came. System. It felt like it was in danger of being laid off, and it was panicking. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, I'm the lowest, but judging from the battle just now, your real strength should be between the word earth and the word mysterious. A feminine voice sounded. That's about right. Jun Changxiao smiled with satisfaction. However, the semi-sane strongman is only at the level of the word mysterious, which means that there are strong men with the words heaven and earth on the plane battlefield, whose strength is definitely comparable to that of Martial Saint, or even higher. If I encounter them, wouldn't it be very troublesome? Sure enough, the battlefield with the lowest limit of entering the Emperor level is full of masters. Jun Changxiao covered his face, raised his body and laughed strangely. It's very exciting here. It suits me very well. He, who was cheating, had a feeling of how lonely it was to be invincible in the Xingqiu continent. In the plane battlefield, the Emperor level is everywhere. The semi-saints are as numerous as dogs, and there are martial saints and even higher. The situation is different. Especially when he thought of being able to fight with them. Jun Changxiao's blood burned instantly. Kill 20 plane masters and gain 580 merit points. The base of the Xingqiu continent below also expanded from 2 or 3 meters to more than 20 meters. Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, how many people do I have to kill to develop into a village? A feminine reminder sounded. Dear participants, the number of people in the territory determines the expansion speed. The fewer people, the slower the expansion. Swish, swish. At this moment, streams of light flew over. Among them were masters who pretended to leave before, and masters who were disturbed by the sword energy. The number was at least 6 or 7,000. Humph. Jun Changxiao stood proudly, holding the sword in one hand. Killing 19 emperors and 1 semi-saint was nothing more than a warm-up. The next step was the real. The dual burst of combat armed wings and flying power. This guy actually ran at the fastest speed. Don't be a coward, said the system. Jun Changxiao roared, I must have been kicked in the head by a donkey to fight with thousands of emperors. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 843 Level 3 Wanted Order. Jun Changxiao was very strong, but he never thought that he could fight against thousands of emperors alone, so he had no choice but to run away and wait until the time was up to return to the safe zone. Swish. The mechanical armed wings and the power of flight were combined at a very fast speed. In just a moment, the strong men from all planes who were chasing him were thrown away without a trace. Jun Changxiao was quite confident in escaping. Unless the Martial Saint used space shuttle, no one would catch up. Suddenly, he found that his arms and body began to emit red light and extended to the sky, so he asked in confusion, what the hell is this? The warriors of the Xingqiu continent killed 19 strong men with yellow characters and 1 strong man with black characters. They have entered the killing mode. A third level wanted order is issued with a reward of 500 merit points. A heavy voice came from the sky. Third level wanted order? This is a big fat sheep. All the strong men scattered in the battlefield plain heard the heavy voice, and their eyes suddenly became hot. Except for taking the first blood of the plain warrior, and killing a stronger person than oneself. All other rewards are 10 points, and the bounty is 500 merit points, which is absolutely fatal. Red light. The warriors within 100 miles of Jun Changxiao saw the red light rising into the sky, and immediately rushed over like hungry wolves. Dear participant, the feminine system said, you are now a third level wanted criminal. The red light you release will always expose your position. Please be sure to hide well. Muah. Jun Changxiao's expression collapsed. At this moment, the red light continued to rise, and it must be clearly seen within 200 or 300 miles. Only 20 people. Jun Changxiao roared, just killing red eyes. You are wanted? The system gloated. The host got the wrong time. Absolutely wrong. If Jun Changxiao knew that killing people would become a celebrity and expose his position, he would definitely not shrink in the base for an hour, but would quickly go out to kill, and then shrink back. If it really doesn't work, use the portal to return to the eternal ancient sect. Don't play anymore. But now, even if I want to go back, I can't. The system continued to gloat. The host turned the simple mode into hell mode. Ha ha ha. It's okay. It's okay. Jun Changxiao calmed down and said, I have mechanical armed wings, dual core drive, faster speed, and it's no problem to escape for half an hour. Ha ha. At this moment, under the release of spiritual thoughts, he captured countless strong men chasing him from the other 3 directions, so he could only flee at the fastest speed. The system said sarcastically, it's really exciting here, very suitable for the host to escape. Jun Changxiao ignored him and put all his thoughts on escaping. Chase. Don't let him run away. 500 merit points, I must get it. Warriors from the 4 directions of southeast, northwest, tens of thousands of strong men chased after him with hot eyes, wishing to cut the third level wanted criminal into pieces immediately and earn merit points. Why don't they fight? They have to chase me and kill me. Jun Changxiao roared in his heart. It was agreed that the planes would fight each other in the plain battlefield, but now they are collectively targeting me. Who the hell did I offend? Dear participant, because your life value is 500 merit points, which is 50 times higher than 10 merit points, the female prompt voice said. Jun Changxiao opened his speed at full speed and entered the crazy escape mode. At this time, his blood was no longer boiling, and there was only one thought in his mind: I want to go home. I want to go back to the eternal ancient sect. Xingqiu continent. Several rarely seen martial saints landed in the ancient altar, including City Lord Han. They all frowned, looking worried. High priest. A strong man was silent for a while and said, can't it be pushed away? Hey. The old man in white robe shook his head and said, the will of the upper realm can only be obeyed. The plain battlefield has always been participated by high-level planes. Our Xingqiu continent has a low overall strength. Going in is undoubtedly equivalent to sending ourselves to death. A martial saint frowned. These strong men, second only to the martial emperor, have some understanding of the plain battlefield, so they are frowning. The high priest sighed and said, even if we have to die, we have to send 2,000 martial emperors in. Only when the territory belonging to our Xingqiu continent is expanded to a certain extent can we be qualified to leave. Expand the territory? City Lord Han smiled bitterly and said, in my opinion, if the territory cannot be expanded, the whole army will be wiped out. Alas. Several martial saints sighed. The Xingqiu continent is nothing more than the most inconspicuous plane in the universe. There are countless higher planes. Going to participate in it 5 years later is equivalent to sending the martial emperor to his death. If only a few dozen people were sent, it would not matter, but 2,000 people must be lost. This is definitely a heavy blow to the continent that is already on the decline. Everyone. The high priest said, 5 years later, you will also go to the plain battlefield. Maybe you can expand your territory with your strength, and maybe you can minimize the losses. The only way. Several martial saints looked determined. They are strong, but they also know that the strong men in the higher planes are stronger than themselves. Since they have been designated by the upper realm, they can only bite the bullet and participate in the war. Plain battlefield? In Xianyu Royal City, Mu Changhan frowned. Yi Xiangxing, who was sitting in the first seat, said, I heard that this is a battlefield opened up by the upper realm to solve the problem of overcrowding. To enter it, you must kill and expand the territory. Sita Heoan shook his head and said, the plain battlefield is a place more terrifying than hell. Sending people from our Zingayan continent into it is equivalent to sending them to death. Yes. Yi Xiangxing said, the ancient wars of the emperors caused the world to fall apart, and the vitality was greatly damaged. If we experience the plain battlefield again, the backbone forces will be seriously damaged, and the overall strength will only decline further. Mu Changhan realized the seriousness of the matter. Picking up the letter on the table, he said resolutely, for the sake of the continent, we can only go. The altar will not only dispatch 2,000 martial emperors in 5 years, but also semi-saints and martial saints, because even if they are weak, they cannot give up, and must fight for a glimmer of hope. Obviously sending them to die. Why do they have to send so many strong people? Because according to the rules of the plain battlefield, if one party participates in the plain and treats it passively, or simply sends martial emperors to perfunctorily, they will be punished. To put it bluntly, being assigned to a plain to go to the plain battlefield is to die, desperately die. Of course, if you can hold on within the specified time, or expand the territory to a large extent, there will be generous rewards. As for the strong men of the Falling Star continent, they are not looking forward to getting rewards, they just hope to survive the cruel battlefield and minimize the losses, then thank God. When the top strong men of the Falling Star continent were worried, Jun Changxiao, who had sneaked into the plain battlefield in advance through the portal, was now running away frantically with his mouth open and tongue sticking out, forcing him to be like this. That's right, there are thousands of strong men chasing him. Just think about it, it's emperor level or even semi-saints chasing after him. How shocking that picture would be. Jun Gaosheng can have what he has today, thank heaven and earth. The system is still gloating and saying, burn your chakra quickly, burn your small universe, and burn your domineering color. Chapter 844, Fighting a Bloody Path. Although Jun Changxiao was in a very bad state, it was still a bit difficult to chase him down with the power of the armed wings and flying. However, the red light broke through the sky, exposing the position at all times. More and more strong men came from all directions, and it was really dangerous. In fact, Jun Changxiao can use the hard to retract knife, but the effect of this thing has not been tested yet, and it is unknown whether it is fierce or not. If he falls into a serious weakness period, he will definitely die in the danger zone. Where to escape? Whoosh. While thinking, the energy suddenly burst out on the right, and Dent's fist prints and palm prints pressed down. Get out of here. Jun Changxiao swung out with a sword, instantly breaking the incoming moves, and wiped out several martial emperors who were blocking the way in front on the spot. This kind of besiege scene appeared several times in just 10 minutes. He killed a lot of them one after another. Although his merit value increased, his body became even redder. Jun Zhangsu is now a big celebrity in front of the emperor, and the light penetrates the world, which can be easily captured by others. Swish, swish, more strong men rushed to kill. For 500 merit points, they will never give up. Seeing more and more strong men joining in the hunt, Jun Changxiao roared in his heart, how long will it take? The system said, there are still 10 minutes to enter the safe zone. Almost. Jun Changxiao turned around at full speed, suddenly turned around in midair, and flew towards the Xingyu continent stronghold at a high speed, and secretly calculated that it would take just the right time to reach there. The system said, I don't want to attack the host, but there is one thing I must say. What should I do if they surround the stronghold? Fuck. Jun Changxiao collapsed. He didn't expect this. Damn it. Jun Changxiao's body suddenly exuded endless murderous intent, saying, if the stronghold is surrounded, I can only fight my way out. Without the martial saint level strongman to take action, he could escape to the ends of the earth. However, the energy will eventually run out, and the red light will always expose his position, attracting more strong men to kill. So if he wants to survive, he must return to the safe zone. Let the system get right. When Jun Changxiao flew towards the Xingqiu continent stronghold at a high speed, he saw from afar that there were at least 1,000 strong men hanging in the air, surrounding the Xingqiu continent stronghold in 3 layers. "Damn it," he said resolutely, "let's fight." Ka. The mechanical armed wing combat mode and defense mode were activated, and the 9 phosphorus body armor and spiritual armor would rate on it. At this moment, Jun Changxiao's strongest state was fully activated. On the top of Huashan Mountain, he challenged 2 evil sect bosses. He had used it at full power and even sacrificed a rocket launcher, but at that time it was mainly used to scare people and make them know what to do and cede land and pay tribute. At this moment, in the plain battlefield, he was very serious and devoted to staying alive. Because the safe zone was blocked, he had to fight his way out anyway, otherwise he would be dead sooner or later if he wandered in the dangerous zone. The Eternal Sect wanted to develop, and he was still single. How could he die in this place? The system said, the host is better off dead, because it's too difficult to get out of being single. Jun Changxiao ignored the complaints. His eyes gradually turned red, and his whole body was filled with hot flames, as if he was a fire god who would be incinerated if he was slightly touched. "That kid is here." I knew he would return to the base. The eyes of the thousands of warriors guarding the territory of the Xingqiu continent became hot. At this moment, they didn't care about Jun Changxiao who was shrouded in flames, but regarded him as a flying 500 merit points. "Form a formation." A plain strongman shouted. Swish, swish. More than 20 strong men flew out, long swords were unsheathed from behind, and a certain sword formation was immediately arranged. "All of you die." Jun Changxiao, who came at a very fast speed, roared angrily, and his right arm, which was blessed by the combat form, suddenly swung the Jade Dragon Questioning Heaven sword, and directly dragged out a dazzling sword energy. This sword was more powerful than the one that killed the half-saint just now. It can be clearly seen that there are slender sword marks left on the thick space barrier. Tread. Tread. At this moment, 2 strong men from the savage continent stepped on the ground with their feet, and 2 giant phantoms that seemed to come from ancient times appeared, and then raised their hands to meet the sharp sword energy. Boom. Boom. A roar that shook the world came. When everything calmed down, the 2 giants had already been broken by the sword energy. Thump. 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 The 2 savage continent strong men retreated one after another, covering their chests and spurting blood, their eyes filled with horror. They were Zuan level strong men, and the ancient giants they condensed were also the strongest defensive Dharma images in the savage continent. Now they were released together, but they couldn't withstand the guy's sword. Jun Changxiao in his strongest state was not a soft persimmon, but a hedgehog covered with steel nails. 3,000 sword control techniques. At this moment, dozens of sword cultivators in the formation threw out their swords one after another, and instantly transformed into 3,000 sword energies like a peacock spreading its tail, and then formed a sword rain, killing Jun Changxiao. Swish. Swish. The dense sword energy formed a force like a tsunami. One word quick trick. Swish. 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 Dense sword shadow shook out, colliding wildly with the incoming sword rain, and finally knocked them all away. "Swords!" Jun Changxiao shouted. Swish. 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 The swords that were knocked away were no longer under the control of the sword cultivators, and they swirled and gathered above his head, forming a giant sword. Showing off swords in front of Jun Changxiao was undoubtedly showing off a big knife in front of Guangdong. Everyone in the formation was stunned, and a strong ominous sign rose in the next second. The leader shouted, "Retreat. All of you die." Jun Changxiao was furious, and the Jade Dragon Questioning Heaven sword slashed down suddenly. The giant swords gathered in the sky suddenly collapsed like a mountain, carrying endless sword power, and pressing down fiercely. Bang, bang, bang. Dozens of sword cultivators in the formation had no time to dodge, and instantly turned into a bloody rain under the sharp edge of the giant sword. At that moment, the Emperor level warriors were as fragile as ants. Congratulations to the participants for taking the first blood of the Eugean continent and gaining 100 points of merit. Congratulations to the participants for killing 21 yellow character warriors of the Eugean continent and gaining 210 points of merit. The warriors from all planes, who were about to take action were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out when they saw that more than 20 warriors from the Eugean continent had all fallen. Raw. At this moment, the clothes of the 2 savage continent warriors who were repelled burst, and strange tattoos appeared on their chests. Then their bodies gradually expanded and evolved into the body of a fierce beast more than 20 feet tall. Barbarian King transformation. Someone exclaimed. Boy. The Barbarian King transformation warrior roared. Die. The palm as big as a mountain, carrying the violent force, slammed over fiercely. Another Barbarian King transformation warrior raised his right arm and blasted from the side, just trapping Jun Changxiao who was flying in it. Haha, the violent force was released crazily, and the entire space was almost distorted by the shock. Seeing this, all the experts stood in awe. At this moment, they could judge that after the 2 Zuan level experts entered the Barbarian King transformation, their strength was probably infinitely close to the Earth level. This level 3 wanted criminal was doomed. Kill. Jun Changxiao's eyes were full of murderous intent. He poured his power into the Jade Dragon Heavenly Sword, forming a scorching sword light, and stabbed at the big palm that attacked first. Puchy. The sword energy pierced straight through the palm. Chapter 845 I will come back. The Barbarian King who was pierced by the Jade Dragon Heavenly Sword roared in pain. Hoo-hoo. Another big palm carrying infinite power pressed from the side. Jun Changxiao didn't have time to draw his sword, so he turned around suddenly, raised his right fist covered with steel, and slammed it hard on his palm. Bang! The power burst out, and ripples rippled. All the strong men in the face widened their eyes, because the Barbarian King who was dozens of feet tall and powerful in the field of vision staggered back and finally fell to the ground with a bang. Another strong man was still screaming. Jun Changxiao flew over, drew out the Jade Dragon Heavenly Sword, flew into the air, and slashed it down suddenly. Puchy. Under the huge sword light, the thick arm was cut off immediately. Facing 2 strong men who had activated the Barbarian King, and were infinitely close to the word Earth, Jun Changxiao was able to knock one away and injure one, which was really quite terrifying. Under normal circumstances, he would definitely take advantage of your illness to kill you. But now they were in a hurry to fight their way back to the base, so Jun Changxiao rushed to the safe zone with his sword. The battle just now shocked all the strong men in the plane. Seeing the fierce man rushing over, they were immediately shocked and retreated. Someone shouted, he is alone. Let's go together. Who can kill him in the chaos of swords depends on luck. Okay. The strong men in the plains responded one after another. Hoo-hoo. However, when they were about to take action, there was a dazzling light flashing in the sky, and a huge palm print with rolling clouds and mist came down to suppress it. The strong pressure deeply shocked everyone's heart. This is, a strong man said in surprise, the strong man with the word Earth. Jun Changxiao, who was rushing over, also felt a terrifying pressure. He hurriedly looked up, and saw the mighty palm print pressing down. He immediately cursed, your grandmother's leg. Boom. The entire red continent shook, rolling up dust. In the sky, an old man in a green robe appeared from the void, emitting a terrifying aura around him, which made the strong men in all planes feel daunted. This is a strong man with the character D. In terms of the level of the Starfall continent, he is a genuine martial saint, even stronger than City Lord Han in terms of strength. No wonder Jun Changxiao was suppressed before he finished scolding. After all, he was too strong and too fast. The palm print pressed down, and the dust covered the sky and the sun. It's over. A small warrior from the Starfall continent actually took the action of a strong man with the character D. It's really a bit unbelievable. Disperse. Disperse. The 3rd level wanted criminal is dead, and the strong men in all planes will naturally not stay. No. Why is there no sound prompt? According to the rules of the plane battlefield, the definition of a wanted criminal warrior will be announced to the world as long as he is wiped out, but now there is no sound in the sky. Swish. Suddenly, a black shadow rushed out from the rolling dust at a high speed. The experts in all the planes realized that the warrior from the falling star continent did not die from the palm print. The expert with the character Earth was surprised. Even if he was an opponent of equal strength, he would at least be injured by this palm print. How come this guy was not hurt at all? There was no time to think about it, and he gathered the strong palm print again to press down. Boom. The earth shook again, and dust flew all over the sky. Swish. Jun Changxiao rushed out from the dust again, but the spiritual armor on the outermost layer was seriously damaged, and he looked extremely embarrassed. What are you waiting for? The system roared. Hurry up and pull out of the mall, buy props, and fight him. Jun Changxiao pretended not to hear it, and flew away at a high speed close to the ground. He is not dead yet. The expert and all the planes were stunned. Little kid. The expert with the character Earth said coldly, don't run away. Who? As soon as the voice fell, a huge palm print came down again with clouds and mist. Boom. Swoosh. Jun Changxiao jumped out again. His spirit armor had already completely shattered, revealing the 9 phosphorus body armor. If you don't want to use contribution points, you can also use the unrecoverable sword. The system roared. At this time, it was very nervous and panicked, because if Jun Changxiao died, it would also die. The plane master saw that the guy could still run so fast after enduring 3 consecutive palm prints from the Earth Master, and their eyes widened. Of course, there was no time to be shocked, and they all used their body skills to escape. Because the 4th palm was coming down again, at this pace, if they didn't dodge, they would be affected sooner or later. Boom. Swish. Jun Changxiao jumped out again, and the system almost cried and said, you want to die, don't implicate me. Boom. Swish. Just like that, the palm prints kept suppressing. Jun Changxiao was like a tenacious mole, running out while being suppressed again and again. Until he was suppressed several times in a row, the Earth Master was suspended in the air and stopped attacking, because the target had entered the Xinjiang continent stronghold. Plop. Jun Changxiao sat down on the chair, bent over and lowered his head, breathing heavily, and his 9 phosphorus body armor had been damaged in many places. The reason why he could withstand so many palms was because of his defensive equipment, otherwise he would have been dead long ago. Old fellow. After taking a breath, Jun Changxiao raised his head with difficulty, and gritted his teeth and said, this resentment of suppression, I will remember it, and I will repay it 100-fold in the future. Wow. As soon as he finished speaking, he could no longer suppress the injuries in his body, and spurted out a mouthful of blood. To resist so many palm prints, although he relied on defensive equipment, he also relied on spiritual maintenance. Every palm attack not only consumed spiritual energy, but also hurt his internal body. Jun Changxiao's meridians are now damaged, which can be classified as a serious injury. It's not that he has never been injured, since he traveled through time, but he has never been injured so badly and so embarrassed, so his anger erupted in his heart, and his eyes gradually turned red. Humph. The Earth character strongman sneered and said, you are lucky to survive after resisting so many palms from me, but you won't be so lucky next time you meet me. The voice became more and more blurred at the end, because the person had merged into the space and disappeared without a trace. Crack. Jun Changxiao clenched his fists. This powerful man who was comparable to a martial saint, he remembered in his sea of consciousness and in his heart, and secretly said with hatred, when I become stronger, it will be the day when your head falls to the ground. This kid is really tough. He didn't die after being suppressed by so many palms in a row. Leave. Because Jun Changxiao entered the Xinjiang continent stronghold, the warriors from all walks of life could do nothing to him, and could only leave. Puff. Jun Changxiao spit out another mouthful of blood, stood up with difficulty, and dragged his embarrassed body step by step towards the portal. Dear participant, once you leave the plain battlefield, the Xinjiang continent will enter the trusteeship state. If you don't come in within a year, it will be forcibly erased. A feminine reminder sounded. Jun Changxiao stopped in front of the portal, turned his back to the plain battlefield, and said, I will come back. Swoosh, his body disappeared out of thin air. The stronghold has now extended to several hundred meters, and the flag with the 4 words Xinjiang continent inserted in the middle is waving in the solemn atmosphere. Chapter 846 is so frustrating. Junior brothers Iro, are you going to the spirit gathering array later? Sure. Li Qingyang and Zhao Zuji walked out of the training tower. However, just as the two were talking, the plain battlefield portal flickered, and Jun Changxiao staggered out, then staggered to the ground and fainted. Li Qingyang and Zhao Zuji were stunned. Oh no, the sect master has fainted. Quick, go to the medicine hall. Where's Sun Bukang? Where's Sun Bukang? The entire Wongu sect was in chaos. Jiangzi and several other elders walked back and forth outside the medicine hall with their hands behind their backs, their faces full of anxiety. Zhao Zuji sat in front of the stairs. Long Xiang, Li Shangshan and others were also very worried. Lu Kai Qian leaned against the corner of the wall. Although her clear eyes were still cold, she could not hide the worry that emerged. Creaky. After a while, the door opened. Wei Leo and Sun Bukang walked out with their heads down, looking like doctors who had just finished an operation. He almost said to the patient's family apologetically, "I'm sorry, we have tried our best." Old Wei, Li Qingyang asked first, "Is the sect master okay? Although he is unconscious, he is fine." Old Wei said. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. "But," Old Wei said, "you need to rest for a while." Ding Xingwang said solemnly, "To make the sect master return with serious injuries, how terrifying is this battlefield secret realm?" Jun Changxiao was in a coma for a day before waking up. Although his injuries were controlled under the treatment of Sun Bukang's medicine, and he had the strength to get out of bed, his meridians were severely damaged, and he could not use his spiritual energy for the time being. It's not a big problem. With the secret realm of time and space, he can recover quickly after entering. Although it was only an hour and a half to go to the plain battlefield this time, it made Jun Changxiao realize that he was still too weak. The system comforted him. It's not that the host is weak, it's that there are too many strong ones. Damn it. Thinking of being suppressed by a martial saint with a palm print, Jun Changxiao clenched his fist and said, "It's so ***king aggrieved." He was very angry. Revenge must be taken. The system suggested, release all the suppressed contribution points, buy a set of top quality equipment, and go back to the plain battlefield to beat him. Jun Changxiao said, wait until the 2 epic tasks are completed, and break through to the semi-saint before taking revenge. The system wanted him to spend quickly, and then take revenge. But what Jun Zhangsu thought was, that it would definitely take a lot of contribution, to deal with a martial saint. Instead of doing this, it would be better to endure for a few months, and wait for the reward to be given, and then settle the account after the realm is raised. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Jun Chang smiled and said, what's more, my last name is Jun. The system crashed and said, what does the Jun in this gentleman have to do with your last name? Creaky. The door was pushed open, and Lu Qian, dressed in a white dress as white as snow, walked in, then put the bowl on the table and said, it's time to take medicine. Jun Chang smiled, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Fortunately, he was able to get out of bed and move around. If she had to take care of him, he would probably have to get out of bed and take medicine with a bandage on. Lu Qian said, since the plain battlefield is so dangerous, why didn't the sect master prepare healing pills to go in? Healing pills have no effect on my current realm. Jun Chang smiled. However, what Lu Qian said did remind him. Martial arts have been constantly updated, but healing pills have always remained at the middle level. It seems. Jun Changxiao thought to himself, I have to find a time to refresh them all. The system said, how about releasing the contribution points? Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes and said, you are instigating me to spend money now, and you are getting more and more crazy. Ah. The system said, the host was abused by others on the battlefield, and I felt bad, so I urgently hope that the host can have more trump cards and become stronger. Damn. This plain battlefield portal that I bought with 50,000 contribution points is useless. I haven't talked to you about it yet. At first, I thought of using the portal to blend into other worlds, but the strongholds in each plane were defined as safe zones, and it was impossible to go to other worlds. It's too unfair to die with these 50,000 contribution points. No. Jun Changxiao just thought about it for a while, and he felt pain in his flesh, heart, and body. The system said nothing, and entered the second pretending to be dead mode. Jun Changxiao went to the secret realm of time and space, and his injuries were fully recovered after he came out. Next, he put his mind on the construction of the sect. The portal of the plain battlefield can be entered at any time and anywhere, but it is nothing more than a copy, looking for exciting places, and the development of the sect is still the top priority at the moment. Next time I go in, I can take Elderding and others with me to expand the territory and stimulate the merit store, Jun Changxiao muttered. After a fight in the plain battlefield, the merit value has exceeded 1,000. He is now looking forward to the merit store that can be exchanged for various martial arts resources. Of course, Elderding and others are also very curious. What did the sect master experience in the secret realm of the battlefield, that he was seriously injured and unconscious? What? Oh my god. Jun Changxiao told the whole story. Suddenly, Elderding and Jiangzi and others sitting in the hall were stunned. There are so many emperors and semi-saints everywhere. This scene is unimaginable. Hey. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, I was injured by a powerful warrior who is comparable to a martial saint. Sect master. Olding's eyes were burning. Can I go in? Not now. Jun Changxiao said. After a while, I will take you in together. Jiangzi and the Ning brothers' eyes became hot. Although the plain battlefield is very terrifying, as a warrior, it is natural to pursue excitement and fight with the strong. Of course. Jun Changxiao said solemnly, during this period, you must practice hard, because once you enter the battlefield secret realm, life and death are determined by fate, and wealth and honor are in the hands of God. Yes. Jiangzi and others said in unison. After the meeting, Jun Changxiao called the Purple Ridge Demon King over and said, how is your recovery? Not bad. The Purple Ridge Demon King said, about 70. With Liu Wansh's food supply and various equipment tempering, he is very close to reaching the strength before the seal. It took several martial saints to subdue him. This guy must be very strong. Jun Changxiao naturally wanted to take him with him to the plain battlefield to avenge himself and expand his territory. Sect Master Yi Xingchen came to see him and said, can I go in? Jun Changxiao hesitated for a moment and said, if you can break through to the martial emperor within 10 months, I will naturally take you in. 10 months. Yi Xingchen said, it's a bit difficult. His realm has now reached the 8th grade martial king level. Except for He Wudi, he is the highest among the disciples. With enough resources and various secret realms, it is no problem to break through the peak in 10 months, but it will take a lot of time to enter the martial emperor. In fact, Yi Xingchen's breakthrough to the martial emperor is a sure thing. After all, he has reached it in his previous life. It's nothing more than going through it again. But the realm requires not only perception, but also time. He has perception now, and only time is left. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others want to enter the martial emperor, and perception and time are also indispensable. It is obviously more difficult for them to break through than Yi Xingchen. It's not a big problem. With Yi Jingjing and Wu crossing giant Shanju, as well as high quality spiritual roots and various resources, it is only a matter of time before you break through. Damn it. Jun Changxiao clenched his fist and said, when I bring people in, I will definitely turn the plain battlefield upside down. PS. Thank you O_ for the reward. I'm not in good shape today. I will update more when I find the feeling. Chapter 847. First visit to the advanced mall. This trip to the plain battlefield made Jun Changxiao realize that such a place is definitely not something that one can have fun in alone, unless one is strong enough to crush everything. It doesn't matter. Next time, you can bring others with you. What's more, the female system also said that the more people there are, the faster the territory will expand. Of course. Having had the experience of entering the battlefield and almost not being able to come back, Jun Zhangzu naturally had to start preparing for a rainy day. The first thing to consider is that you can bring people in, but you must ensure safety, rather than really letting them live and earn it, and their wealth and honor are up to fate. The system said, the host lacks high-level healing pills, high-level spells, and high-level weapons and equipment. Jun Changxiao knew that this guy was selling, but he really lacked them. But if he really wanted to get them all, how much contribution points would he need to pile up? What's more, he couldn't use the plain battlefield to go to other worlds. It would be enough to expand the territory, open the merit shop, and see what was inside. There was no need to go to great lengths. Let's brush the high-level healing pills first. Jun Changxiao made a decision and skillfully opened the beginner mall. The system said, it is absolutely impossible for the host to get such high level items in the primary mall. Then where can I get them? The advanced mall. Jun Changxiao was silent. Since he had the ability to buy the advanced mall, he has never refreshed it, mainly because it requires 10,000 contribution points to refresh it once. The system said, although the products in the advanced mall currently look good, there are not many that can really help the host and the sect. It is recommended to refresh them instead of saving them for the new year. This guy is stimulating Jun Changxiao to spend. However, what he said makes sense. Except for a few props, many of the products in the advanced mall are not worth buying. How much contribution points have you suppressed? Jun Changxiao said. The system said, during this period, I have helped the host suppress more than 70,000 contribution points. So little? Jun Changxiao frowned. Disciples break into the secret realm of life and death, and each time they pass one contribution point. It has been a long time now. If tens of thousands of disciples succeed half of the time, it should be at least 100,000. The system said, as the level of the disciples increases, the difficulty of passing the level decreases. Some inner disciples will form a team to take low-level disciples to the simple mode, so there will be no contribution value rewards. The secret realm of life and death is a good place for the disciples of the eternal sect to level up. But after a long time, the level is high, and the experience points will be less and less, and the contribution points will not be given. For example, leaking Guiyang and Zhao Ziji. With the current common 7th or 8th grade martial king cultivation, the experience points and contribution points are all zero when going through the simple mode. Even if you go through the normal mode, the experience points given are very small, and entering it many times may not necessarily improve your realm. As for the difficult mode, although you can pass it and give a lot of experience points and contribution points, the disciples of the eternal sect cannot pass it without any damage, so the amount given is not much. Right now, relying on the secret realm of life and death to obtain contribution points can only rely on the disciples who have just entered and whose realms have been improved, because they are in the golden stage of leveling up. Okay. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, give me 50,000 first. Ding. Contribution value. 54,480/50,000. Point. Ding. Contribution value overflow. Swish. He opened the high level mall. Jun Changxiao took another look, and after confirming that there were no items he had to buy, he gritted his teeth and pulled down with his mind. At that moment, his hands were shaking. Ding. Contribution value 44,480/50,000. Point. After spending 10,000 contribution points, all the items in the high level mall were replaced, and the following were presented. Hunyuan Stone. Advanced Dragon Flame Technique. 8 Desolate Sky Breaking Axe. Jun Changxiao looked down until he saw the item called Top Grade Healing Pill Formula, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Look. The system said, I'm not wrong. Jun Changxiao laughed at the introduction. Item. Top Grade Healing Pill Formula. Introduction. After purchase, it will automatically match the pill pavilion and obtain the method of refining top grade healing pills. Effect. As long as a warrior is still alive, taking the refined top grade healing pill can quickly recover. Advantages. Not only can it recover injuries, but it can also quickly replenish consumed spiritual energy, thus reaching a full state in an instant. Disadvantages. Only for warriors at the level of Martial Emperor and Martial Saint, and can only take one pill a day. Price. 10,000 contribution points. Can it also restore spiritual energy? Jun Changxiao said happily, this is a good thing. Junior and middle grade healing pills can only restore injuries. When a person is seriously injured, exhausted and in a dangerous situation, taking them is basically useless. Top grade healing pills can restore injuries and spiritual energy, which means that when a person is seriously injured, he can immediately recover and continue to fight the enemy. I must buy this. Jun Changxiao didn't think much about it, and bought it for 10,000 contribution points. As the level gradually increases, the fighting methods become more diverse. As long as a warrior is injured, his meridians will be damaged, and his spiritual core will be affected. Pills that restore injuries and spiritual energy are really a must-have item when going out and fighting. Ding. The recipe automatically matched the alchemy pavilion. Clicking on the refining introduction, more than 50 kinds of materials suddenly appeared. Oh my god. Jun Chang laughed. This is too much. The better the effect of the elixir, the more materials are needed. This is basic common sense, okay? The system said. Jun Chang laughed. How do you explain that 2 pounds of meat and 2 hunger-filling grasses can be used to refine an intermediate beast elixir that is several times stronger than the primary one? The system was speechless. Sect Master Lilu Okiu walked in and said, the hunger-filling grass is far from meeting the collection standard. I'm afraid it will be out of stock soon. Jun Chang laughed. I'm using the intermediate beast elixir to hit the system in the face, and you suddenly come out to hit me in the face. The purchasing hall has been purchasing a large amount of hunger-filling grass. Although this thing is all over the mountain, the growth period is 1 year, and it can't be supplied for a long time. Moreover, the Qingyang County merchants know that the Eternal Ancient Sect has been purchasing it for a long time, so they go to dig hunger-filling grass every day. The major mountains have long been dug bare. Sect Master Jun murmured, we have to find a way to ensure a long-term supply. There are hundreds of thousands of fierce beasts in Tegu Mountain that need to be fed, and the intermediate beast pills must not be out of stock. We must go to Weileo for the medicinal materials. Jun Changxiao came to the medicine hall and handed over the list of medicinal materials for refining top-grade healing pills, saying, how long will it take to plant these dozens of medicinal materials? He didn't have any medicinal materials, but there were a lot of seeds. What's more, the purchasing hall has been purchasing, and as long as they are of good quality, they will be bought and stored for emergency use. Jun Chang joked. I can wait for various formulas to be refreshed, and I must not let the formulas wait for materials. It must be said that he has foresight. Otherwise, now we have to rush to find a way to find materials for refining top-grade healing pills. In fact, Sect Master Jun can also plant all the seeds and keep them for backup, but the project is huge, and he doesn't know what materials are needed for a certain formula that is refreshed, so he can only collect seeds first. Old Wei looked at it carefully and said, although there are many varieties, the quality is not too high. It will take about 3 or 4 months. Let's plant a batch first. Jun Chang smiled. The plain battlefield has a level limit, so it is destined that not many people can be brought in. A few pills are enough for each person, and there is no need for large-scale production for the time being. Yeah. By the way, Jun Chang smiled and said, send some people from the medicine hall to plant the hunger-filling grass on Tegu Mountain. Old Wei was stunned. Strictly speaking, the hunger-filling grass is just an ordinary plant and cannot be considered a medicinal material. Letting the members of the medicine hall plant this thing will definitely reduce their status. Jun Chang smiled and touched his chin, saying, you can set aside a grassland to plant hunger-filling grass. The corners of Old Wei's mouth twitched. He could already imagine the scene of professional herbalists planting hunger-filling grass. Chapter 848. Just by this? On the hill not far from the medicine garden, Pepper the wild boar released her spiritual energy, going back and forth, diligently and earnestly to open up the wasteland. This place is used to grow hunger-filling grass, and it is expected to plant more than 2 million plants. Normally, the growth cycle of this plant is 1 year, but with a seed breeding pool, sufficient spiritual energy and herbalists to cultivate it, it can mature in 2 or 3 months. It can be used to supply hundreds of thousands of fierce beasts, and the excess can be sold. However, if outsiders knew that the Eternal Ancient Sect would grow hunger-filling grass, they would definitely be shocked. Everything is arranged properly, just waiting for the medicinal materials to mature. Jun Changxiao leaned back in his chair, crossed his legs, and drank tea happily. The system said, host has forgotten the fear of being dominated by a powerful Earth-level warrior with a palm print in the plain battlefield. Fuck. Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, can I not mention it? I just forgot it. How can I forget a deep hatred? The system said, a gentleman's revenge is never too late, but revenge must be taken in the end. I will always remind the host. Jun Changxiao now misses the female system that kisses him. Hoo hoo. Suddenly, a stream of promotion came from outside. Jun Changxiao looked up and said in surprise, is someone going to break through to the martial emperor? The disciples who were practicing in the outer courtyard also noticed it and looked in the direction of the momentum and finally determined that it came from Hewudi's room. TSK. Jun Changxiao took a sip of tea and said, my switch disciple is improving very quickly. Hewudi broke through to the martial emperor and he was not too surprised. After all, he had a super god level spiritual root and practiced diligently. Faster than me. Yi Xingchen, who was about to enter the training tower, frowned suddenly. He was not jealous that there were disciples in the sect who entered the emperor level faster than him, but he was just wondering if he could break through to this level before going to the battlefield secret realm. The momentum of advancement continued for a while and gradually returned to calm. Creaky. The door opened and Hewudi, who was filled with the aura of the emperor, walked out, his eyes shining sharper than before. Congratulations, junior brother He, for breaking through to the martial emperor. Passing fellow disciples congratulated him. Coincidence. Hewudi smiled foolishly while touching the back of his head. Coming from the upper realm, he always behaved very modestly and low-key, which was in sharp contrast to Yi Xingchen, who was reborn as a martial emperor. Junior brother He, Li Qingyang said, the sect master ordered you to go to the main hall. Yes. Inside the main hall, Jun Changxiao folded his hands and said, since you have broken through to the martial emperor, come with me to the battlefield secret realm in a while. Battlefield secret realm? Hewudi looked confused. In order to break through to the martial emperor, he has been practicing in seclusion, so he has not heard of it. Jun Changxiao said, simply put, it is a plain battlefield. Plain battlefield? Hewudi's eyes were filled with surprise. He had heard of this place. It was a battlefield opened up by a powerful man with magical powers, allowing warriors from various planes to enter and fight each other. Changxiao, Hewudi said, can we go in? Anytime. Jun Changxiao said. Hewudi's mouth twitched, and he thought to himself, aren't only designated planes eligible to enter? When he came to the back mountain and saw a similar secret realm transmission in trance, he suddenly realized this must have been created by the 7 profound saints with magical powers. Hewudi always forced himself to make up for everything he couldn't understand, and he was worthy of being the leader of the brain-making trio. Jun Changxiao not only had to take his disciples and elders with him, but also his contracted beasts, so he called Xia Longlong and Xia Marxen and told them to use their limited time to strengthen themselves. Humph. Xia Longlong said calmly, Master, it's enough for you to take me with you. There's no need to bring a burden. Who are you calling a burden? Xia Marxen's eyes widened, and she pinched the psychic cat hard. Although the latter was in pain, his face was filled with enjoyment. I'm talking about you. Say it again. Body, burden, burden. Long said important things 3 times, acting very manly. The system said, you are worthy of being the host's contracted beast. Master. The little fairy said with a look of grievance, this little bug bullied me again. Jun Chang smiled and said, let go of your hand first. The little guy can't breathe because of you pinching him. No, it's okay. The psychic cat said in a hoarse voice, you guys continue to chat. I can still bear it. Bang, bang. The little fairy grabbed it and slammed it to the ground several times and said hatefully, I'm annoyed, don't talk. Jun Chang laughed. This little fellow who followed Dunan awakened an incredible hidden attribute. Xia Longlong and Xia Marxen are very powerful, but they are not compatible. Every day they are either bickering or on the way to bickering, so it is quite a headache for Jun Changxiao. Look, it took a long time to persuade the two to enter a truce state and then let Xia Marxen trample on the psychic cat and leave first. Master. Xia Longlong got back to the point. His eyes were cold and he said, I will become stronger, enter the secret realm of the plane, and torture the guy who bullied you to death. Martial Saint. Jun Chang laughed. It's a bit difficult to deal with. The strong man with the character of Earth who suppressed him was obviously stronger than Dingxing Wang and Han Shengsu in terms of explosive momentum. It's okay. Xia Longlong said, I can evolve. Now, that won't work. We have to wait for the right time. Jun Changxiao opened the high-level mall and locked on the high-level dragon flame art. thinking to himself, this should make Xiao Lang Lang stronger. The high level dragon flame art is a beast skill, suitable for fire beasts, and costs 10,000 contribution points. Give Xiao Lang Lang the primary fire rain art, and his strength will be significantly improved. This higher level should be stronger, right? Jun Changxiao guessed. The system said, there are only good products in the high level mall, not wrong ones. The host does not need to think so much, just buy it directly. Ding. The host consumes 10,000 contribution points, and obtains the high level Dragon Flame Art X1, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Contribution value 34,480/50,000. Point. System. This is bought. In the past, when the host Xiao bought things, he always thought about it, but now he bought it casually. Happiness came a little suddenly. Ding. The purchased Dragon Flame Art automatically matched the Spirit Beast Pavilion. Jun Changxiao's point was on the introduction. Beast skill. Advanced Dragon Flame Art. Effect. Allows the contracted beast to comprehend the advanced Dragon Flame Art skill. Conditions. 1/1 fire type contracted beast. 230 100ths fire type middle grade 9th grade fierce beast crystal cores. 0/30 fire type low grade 9th grade spirit beast crystal cores. 0/10ths. Fire type middle grade 9th grade spirit beast crystal cores. Jun Changxiao clicked on the fire type contracted beast again, and the name presented was Fire Dragon. This means that, as long as there are enough fire type crystal cores, it is entirely possible to give Xiao Lang Lang the advanced Dragon Flame Art. Fire type crystal core. He touched his chin and said, where can I find it? At this moment, through the door of the hall, Jun Changxiao saw the Purple and Demon King who was heading to the Spirit Beast Hall, so he smiled and waved. Master Z, come here, I have something to say to you. The Purple and Demon King stopped and felt something was wrong. Where can I find so many fire crystal cores? You beastmen should have your own cemetery. You can send your men to collect them. No. That kind of place cannot be desecrated. Pop. Jun Changxiao placed space rings containing intermediate beast cores on the table and said, Master Z, please collect fire crystal cores as quickly as possible. Understood. Zilin Monster King stood up and took the ring away. It's not like he's going to kill his own people to get crystal cores, but just go to the cemetery to look for them. Well, it's still acceptable. Before leaving, Jun Changxiao said, take some crystal cores of other systems with you. Chapter 849. Not much money. After handing over the crystal core to the Purple Ridge Demon King, Jun Changxiao focused on managing the sect. Now that the healing pills are available, the next thing to consider is whether the disciples can achieve a faster breakthrough before the task is settled. This breakthrough refers to the Emperor level. There are many strong people in the plain battlefield. If the disciples enter it to fight with them, it will naturally be more challenging than the life and death secret realm. And since it is necessary to turn the place upside down, it is definitely not something that can be done by a few people. If hundreds or thousands of emperors are brought to bully them, the scene will definitely be as beautiful as a painting. Li Qingyang and other disciples are about to break through to the peak of the martial king. It may take a long time to rely on their own comprehension. Jun Changxiao murmured, it would be great if there were a martial emperor pill. The system said, as long as the host is willing to spend contribution points, everything will be available. However, it paused and said, the prerequisite is to go to the high-level mall. Get lost. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes. In a high-consumption place like the high-level mall, without hundreds of thousands or millions of contribution points, there is no confidence at all. Jun Changxiao sighed and said, let's take it one step at a time. Leveling up has to be done slowly. It's not realistic to eat until you become fat all at once. Sect Master. Li Qingyang said, Qiansang Bao is here. I thought this kid changed his mind halfway through. It's been a while since the God of Cookery contest ended, but Qiansang Bao still hasn't come to the Eternal Sect to report. Jun Changxiao guessed that he might have been stopped by his father and went to live a quiet life as a rich second generation. In the hall, Qiansang Bao sat in the first seat. He didn't come alone, and he was followed by a middle-aged fat uncle with a big belly. Because he ate too much, his eyes were almost narrowed into a line. Who is this? Jun Changxiao walked in and asked. Just as Kyan Sangbeo was about to introduce himself, the middle-aged uncle bowed and said, I'm Kyan Budo. Swish. Jun Changxiao sat down next to Kyan Budo at lightning speed and extended his hand cordially. Recently, auspicious clouds have appeared in my sect. I was still wondering why. Now I know that the head of the Kyan family will come to visit us not long from now. System. Leaking Guyang. Although Kyan Budo was a little stunned, he had experienced many ups and downs after all. He smiled and said, Master Jun, my son can join the Wangu sect. It is a blessing he cultivated in his previous life. I will trouble you to worry about him in the future. Pa. Just after he finished speaking, he put down a space ring and said, here are 5 million taels of silver notes and 20,000 natural spirit stones, which can be used as the entry fee. The son is so rich. The father is really rich and inhumane. Master Kyan, how old are you? Over 40 years old. Jun Changxiao bowed and said, I'm only in my early 20s, but you call me big brother. Kyan Budo heard him say this and smiled and said, then big brother, from now on, we will call each other brothers. Big brother. Brother. The system complained, do you want to take out the King Lang Yanyu sword and sacrifice it to Master Guan, and you two will become sworn brothers of the opposite sex? Good idea. System. Kyan Budo came this time, first to send his son to join the Wangu sect, and second to try the food made by Liu Wanshi, the champion of the god of cookery competition. So, he brought up the matter during the conversation, and Jun Changxiao went with the flow. Big brother has come from afar, and I have prepared a banquet to welcome him. Please. Please. Master Jun took him to the courtyard where he lived and arranged the dining place in the main hall. Senior officials of the certification hall, such as Elder Zhao and Elder Zen, only let them eat in the cafeteria. Putting Kyan Budo here shows that they respect Big Brother very much. Serve the dishes. Jun Changxiao snapped his fingers. Yahui and Dahui, who had received the order early, came in with the delicacies and quickly filled the entire table. There were all kinds of meat, vegetables, sweet and spicy. After the dishes were served, Kyan Budo did not rush to pick up the chopsticks, but sniffed it gently and said, it tastes good. Kyan Sangbeo was stunned. His father was more picky about food than himself. Now he praised it without even tasting it. It was really unexpected. Sect Master Jun said modestly, it's just a simple meal. I'm sorry to make you laugh. Kyan Budo said, brother, this mouth-watering smell alone is worth spending hundreds of thousands to smell it. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Sure enough, in the world of the rich, everything has to be measured by money. Swish. Kyan Budo waved his hand and took out the tableau he had specially equipped. Judging from the color, although it was not gold, it was definitely more precious than gold. Sect Master Jun began to seriously consider whether to adopt the system's suggestion, summon the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade, and become sworn brothers with him. Kyan Budo arranged the tableau, then raised his chopsticks to pick up a piece of braised pork. When he put it to his mouth, he stood there like a wooden chicken. That's right. The soul flew up. After the meal, the expression on the face of the head of the Kyan family was turbulent, changing in many ways, and wonderful. Pa. After taking a sip of soup, he put down the spoon and said solemnly, brother, I have no regrets in my life to taste such delicious food in your clan. Pa. He slapped the space ring on the table and said, there are still 20,000 natural spirit stones in it, just as my hospitality fee. Brother. Jun Chang smiled and said, you treat me as an outsider. That's right. Kyan Budo took back the space ring and bowed. Talking about money between brothers hurts feelings. Jun Chang smiled and twitched slightly. I was just being modest. Why did he take it back so rudely? Brother. Kyan Budo said, my Kyan family recently discovered a spirit stone vein of a decent size deep in the Baekyu mountains. I need to go back to take charge of the overall situation, so I'll take my leave first. A spirit stone vein of a decent size. Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up, but he said solemnly, the Baekyu mountains are full of ferocious beasts and are very dangerous. Yes. Kyan Budo said, it is very difficult to mine, so hurry back to the family to find a solution. Brother. Jun Changxiao bowed and said, if you need help from my Wangu sect, I will definitely be happy to assist. You're right, I really need help. Kian Budo said, brother, can you send some experts to follow my Kian family survey team into the Baekyo Mountains? Jun Changxiao was a little confused. Although he was very excited about the spiritual stone vein, what he said just now was nothing more than a polite remark. Or did he come here not to send his son or to have a meal, but to deliberately come to my Wangu sect to seek help? Of course. Kian Beauty said, assistance fees are also necessary. Brother, when are we going? In half a month. Your Kian family is the only one who knows about this vein of minerals? For the time being, only my Kian family knows about it. No problem. Jun Chang smiled and said, I will send an expert there in half a month. Thank you. You and I are brothers. It would be too formal to say thank you. This guy didn't say it was too formal to mention the money just now, because he was afraid that the other party would be impolite and not even give the assistance fee. Chapter 850, Making a Mountain of a Mountain. Kian Budo came this time. No matter what the reason was, Jun Changxiao would definitely send someone to help mine the spiritual stone veins. After all, he was so generous, and the assistance fee must be quite a lot. Brother. Kian Budo stood in front of the mountain gate and bowed, saying, I'll leave my son to you. Don't worry, big brother. Jun Changxiao said, brother will definitely train him to be a pillar of society. Goodbye. Goodbye. Kian Budo came and left in a hurry. After watching him leave, Jun Changxiao handled the entry procedures for Kian Songbao and handed him over to Liu Wanshi. The little girl looked like a master, saying, from today on, you are a member of the dining hall. You will get up early every day to prepare the ingredients. That. Kian Songbao collapsed and said, I'm very lazy. I have to work even if I'm lazy, otherwise I won't have any food to eat. Liu Wanshi said. Kian Songbao suddenly wanted to cry, but had no tears. However, thinking that if he couldn't eat the food cooked by Liu Wanshi, what was the point of coming to the Eternal Sect? Okay. He compromised, I'll try. Bang. The next day, Kian Songbao, who was sleeping soundly, flew out of the window and fell to the ground with a plop. Pa. The barefoot fairy clapped her hands and walked out, saying, the sun is shining on your butt, and you are still sleeping in. Go to the cafeteria to work. Kian Songbao stood up like his whole body was falling apart. Seeing that the sky was just getting light, he collapsed and said, it's still early for the sun to come out. Oh. The fairy grabbed his collar and said coldly, are you questioning what this queen said? Bang. Bang. After a while, Kian Songbao came to the cafeteria with a bruised face. Lin Yao, who had already integrated into the Eternal Ancient Sect, pointed to several large baskets filled with ingredients and said, go and wash the vegetables. This is too much. Bang. As soon as the voice fell, the fairy appeared behind him and punched him on the head, saying, go if I tell you to go, don't talk nonsense. Okay. Kian Songbao hurriedly carried the ingredients and left. The workload on the first day was not much, that is, he was responsible for washing vegetables before each meal, but when he was done, he lay on the bed and cried as if he was paralyzed. Dad, I want to go home. The spoiled Kian Songbao found it difficult to adapt to the life in the Wangu sect. Fortunately, there was a little fairy in charge of supervision. After being abused for a few days, he was able to get up early on time and go to the kitchen to help on time. When working, the little guy's expression was collapsed. When eating, the little guy's expression was flying with joy. So far, the dining hall has been further improved. Liu Wanshi and Ao Jun were responsible for cooking, Ma Yangning and Lin Yao were responsible for cutting vegetables, and members such as Yehui and Ahui were responsible for miscellaneous work. As for Kian Songbao, he was responsible for washing vegetables first, and then let him cook. After he became diligent, the people in the medicine hall were not idle either. They began to plant hunger-filling grass on the grassland, reclaimed by wild boar pepper. This thing does not have much cultivation technology content. After planting, there is no need to watch it every day. Just come over occasionally to weed and fertilize. Wei Lao took a few backbones to focus on dozens of medicinal materials given by Jun Chang's laughter, so he started to work overtime in Yaoshan. After a few days, open it on the martial arts field, Xia Lang and Xia Daoxin met again and began to fight daily. This situation is very common, so the disciples passing by nearby have not come up. Good men don't fight with women, too lazy to take care of you, said, turned around and walked towards the outer courtyard, but just after walking in 2 steps, his body suddenly stiffened, and a strange information appeared in the sea. It had experienced this feeling before. So after regaining consciousness, it said in a daze, I learned a new skill. Whoosh. Flames burst out from its body, activating its second form. The little fairy thought he was going to attack, so it tiptoed into the sky, covered itself with wings, and was about to use the flying feathers. Swish. Suddenly, Xia Lang also flew up, stretched out his hands from the flames, locked them below, and shouted, Dragon Flame Storm. Whoosh. The space of the martial arts field below rippled, and a stream of fire energy emerged. Then the flames rose and continued to rotate in place, gradually spreading upwards, and suddenly formed a tornado. Crack, 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 as the intensity of the flames continued to increase, and the speed of rotation accelerated. The entire martial arts field was suddenly steamed and baked red, and the stone slabs were all evaporated. Jun Changxiao, who had just clicked the comprehension button, felt the restless flames coming from the inner courtyard, and hurriedly flew out. Seeing that the martial arts field was completely destroyed, he collapsed and said, Stop, stop, stop. Cap. The flames weakened immediately. Tram. Xia Lang fell on the charred ground, looked at his hands in disbelief, and said, This skill is so terrifying. It only used 20% to 30% of the flame power. If it broke out completely, not to mention the martial arts field, the entire inner courtyard would be burned to ashes. After testing, the high-level dragon flame technique is not only terrifyingly powerful, but also has a wide attack range. If it blows up in the plain battlefield, as many powerful people with the word yellow as the yellow character will die. I can't wait any longer. Jun Changxiao's eyes were burning, especially when he thought of being suppressed by the powerful person with the word earth. He wished he could take Dingxing Wang, the Purple Ridge Demon King, the 2 contracted beasts, Jiangzi and others to the battlefield right now, to find that guy and torture him to death. Burning area. Li Qingyang, the housekeeper, was counting the losses. Xia Lang obtained the dragon flame technique skill. How powerful it is, can only be perfectly displayed in a battlefield dominated by killing. Jun Changxiao had to wait until the epic task was settled before deciding to go in, so it was destined that it would not be reflected for a while. Master Z. One day, he ordered, Master Khan discovered a spiritual stone vein in the Baekyu Mountains. You take Niu Leo and others to help. Baekyu Mountains? The Purple Ridge Demon King heard this, and his eyes suddenly turned cold. What? Jun Changxiao said. Zilin Monster King said in a deep voice, there lives a spirit beast comparable to a martial saint in Baekyu mountain range, calling himself Baekyu King. I tried to persuade him to surrender, but was rejected. Really? Jun Changxiao frowned. He promised to help him dig for a small amount of money, so he wanted Zilin to come forward. After all, he has the identity of a monster king. Now there is a powerful spirit beast that does not obey him, and the problem is a bit tricky. In that case, Jun Changxiao said, just take it down. Zilin Monster King said solemnly, this Baekyu King is powerful and very cunning. It is probably difficult to surrender. It seems that you either suffered a loss or did not take advantage of it when you tried to surrender before. Jun Changxiao said. Humph. Zilin Monster King said coldly, I had just come down from the upper realm at that time, and my cultivation and strength had dropped significantly. Otherwise, I could crush it with one finger. Obviously, Jun Changxiao guessed right. This guy went to recruit Baekyu King, and not only failed, but he must have suffered a setback. Even the Purple Hole Master can't do anything about it. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, if we subdue the Baekyu King, it will be a great help. A few days later, the outskirts of the Baekyu Mountains. Jun Changxiao walked over, with 2 contracted beasts behind him, including senior officials such as Ding Leo, Gongsun Heohei, and Jiangzi, as well as 5,000 members of the War Riders Hall led by Zhu Ringui and Tao Yun, and core disciples such as Li Qingyang and Zhao Ziji. Clan Budo and the Clan family masters were also in the same group. Whenever they saw this Linoop, they collapsed and thought to themselves, isn't it just to mine the spirit stone veins? Is it necessary to make such a fuss? PS. The 4th update. Please vote for the monthly ticket and the recommendation ticket. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.